ስብሰባ ነው። በሕገ መንግስታችን አንቀጽ 58 ንዑስ አንቀጽ 1 እና በምክርቤታችን የአሰራርና የአባላት ስነ ምግባር ደንብ አንቀጽ 22 ንዑስ አንቀጽ 3 መሰረት ከአባላት 385 የተገኙ ስለሆነ ሙላተ ጉባኤ ተሟልቷል። ወደ ዛሬ ዕለት አጀንዳ ከመሄዳችን በፊት ባለፉት ሳምንታት በነበረው ሁኔታ ህይወታቸውን ላጡ ዜጎቻችን ሀዘናችን ለመግለጽ ከመቀመጫችን ተነስተን የአንድ ደቂቃ ህሊና ጸሎት እንድናደርግ ጠይቃለሁ። መደበኛ ስብሰባ ቃለ ጉባኤ መርምሮ ማጽደቅ። ሁለተኛ የኢፌዴሪ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ክቡር ዶክተር አህመድ በወቅታዊ አገራዊ ጉዳዮች ላይ ከምክርቤት አባላት ለሚቀርቡላቸው ጥያቄዎች የሚሰጡትን መልስ ማዳመጥ ናቸው። በዚህ መሰረት በአራተኛ መደበኛ ስብሰባ ቃለ ጉባኤ ላይ የሚቀርቡ እርማቶችና ማስተካከያዎች ካሉ ከሌሉ የአራተኛ መደበኛ ስብሰባ ቃለ ጉባኤ መጽደቁን የምትደግፉ አመሰግናለሁ። ተቃውሞ፣ ድምጽ ታቅቦ የለም። ስለዚህ የምክር ቤቱ አራተኛ መደበኛ ስብሰባ ቃለ ጉባኤ በሙሉ ድምጽ ጸድቋል። አጀንዳ 2 የኢፌዴሪ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ክቡር ዶክተር አህመድ በወቅታዊ ሀገራዊ ጉዳዮች ላይ ከምክር ቤት አባላት ለሚነሱ ጥያቄዎች ምላሽና ማብራሪያ የሚሰጡ ይሆናል። ይሄን እናዳምጣለን። ስለዚህ ጥያቄ ለሚያቀርቡ የምክር ቤት አባላት እድል ሰጣለሁ። የተከበሩ አቶ ሻምበል ነጋሳ።
አመሰግናለሁ። የተከበሩ አፈ ጉባኤ፣ ክቡር ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር ስለ ሀገራችን ወቅታዊ ጉዳይ የሰላም ሁኔታ አስመልክቶ ለምናነሳቸው ጥያቄዎች ምላሽ ለመስጠት በመካከላችን በመገኘቱ አመሰግናለሁ። ጥያቄን እንደሚከተለው አቀርባለሁ። 1. ባለፉት ዓመታት በህወሓት የበላይነት ሲመራ የነበረው ገዢ ፓርቲ ኢህአዴግ ከሁለት አስርተ ዓመታት በላይ አገሪቱን ሲመራ በቆየበት ዓመታት ህዝቡ በአድሏዊ አያያዙ ምክንያት ከጊዜ ወደ ጊዜ የመልካም አስተዳደር እጦት ጥያቄዎችን በተለይም የፍትሃዊ ሀብት አጠቃቀም አለመኖር፣ በልማት ስም ውስን ሰዎች ለመጥቀም ያለበቂ ካሳ እና
and also displacing people without proper compensation, and whenever people asked for their rights they conducted anti-democratic and inhuman actions, and because of this there was an arrest, and especially because it could not address questions of the youth, so unrests both from within the change came to pass, and TPLF, not happy with the change, went to Mekelle, did its best to reverse the change, and by employing underage youth in the military, and was in preparation to dismantle the country, but there was a lot of patience by the government. Why so much patience? Because of the patience was very costly. Shouldn't we have taken measures to ensure rule of law and ensure that the constitution was maintained? Shouldn't we have taken action faster? And also more than 20 years army who lived together with Tigran, helping in development ventures like agriculture, involving in harvesting, fighting locusts, the honor and pride of our country, a brave army that stayed there, believing that it was among its own people. It was attacked during the night while they were asleep, and those that were within the army also killed the army because they wanted to rob armaments. This has not been seen anywhere in the world. Quite a despicable act to be recognized, to be written in history. So the people have confirmed that the measure taken by the government is proper, and they have denounced the despicable act of TPLF. So the measures that the government is taking to maintain rule of law is approved and supported by the people. So what is the government planning as we go ahead by way of going forward in the path of development? And also the relationship of Ethiopia and Eritrea were at odds for more than 20 years. After the change in our country, the Prime Minister, in his very first speech at the Parliament, he extended an arm of peace to the government of Eritrea. This was accepted, and there was peace and reconciliation between the two countries, and this has been internationally recognized and admired. And this earned the Prime Minister a Nobel Peace Prize. This was huge by way of diplomatic acceptance. But however, TPLF was not happy by these, and they was openly denouncing the reconciliation between the two countries, and now it is claiming that Eritrea has supported the Ethiopian military forces and they are attacking them. If you would explain on this. Thank you. Honorable Wizaro Gabayanesh Nagash. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Excellency Nobel Prize winner, Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed. We're grateful for being here to respond to our questions. Honorable Speaker, in the past, our army was protecting the borders for more than 20 years. That endured all sorts of hunger and thirst. They were protecting the Tigrayans, considering them as a father, a mother, a sister, and a brother, and they did whatever they could by way of supporting the development ventures of the people. However, TPLF, the bandas therein, as PM expressed, is like an attack against one's own mother. Terrible loss of lives. So the North Division of Ethiopia, I express my sadness for the terrible loss. Prime Minister, because of your leadership that's full of wisdom, and also by the brave actions of our forces, and by the strong moral of the entire people, I congratulate you for the great victory that was registered, and Ethiopia is proud of you as our leader. Thank you. And I would pose my question as as follows. In our country, Ethiopia, in the past 2.5 years, on every ventures in our country, there's been a huge change that were very admired globally. However, this there was TPLF was against the fast pace of development in our country. They sent and trained and sent and supported terrorists to many parts of Ethiopia and did whatever it could to reverse the path of development. But because of the peace-loving people that we have and the strength of our law enforcement officers, they were not successful. TPLF in desperation attacked the northern division of our army and openly started a war. Your Excellency Prime Minister, so this work of law enforcement was done at a time that the government was fully engaged in development and our government was forced into the war. So the actions taken, painstakingly protecting and making sure that civilians were not attacked, the actions that were taken to liberate the people of Tigray, and what's the government planning to make sure that things normalize and the Tigrayans continue in the path of development. And secondly, the economic and diplomatic pressures that we are facing at the moment. Well, what's the government doing to handle that pressure? And on the other hand, using the gap that is created, if there is any entity, foreign entity that wants to attack our country, how prepared are we to defend ourselves? Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Ato Mesaret Jamane. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. There's a technical problem in the mic. I want to thank the Prime Minister for being here to respond to our questions. We take pride by our national forces, and my questions are: the current time, at a time that's full of hope. On the other hand, Ethiopians are going through difficult times. The destructive TPLF is going to full-fledged genocide and a war to dismantle the country. The government is forced into law enforcement operation. But this law enforcement operation is being led by the Prime Minister. I want to thank you for this. This group, while it was in power, the criminal acts it engaged, and it fled the country out of its own volition. But the desire of this group is to reverse the change and assume power. But this group could have been contained if measures were taken ahead of time. It's because of the patience that gave them time, and they used the money that they stole to send destructive forces, and especially making the Amharas a special target, and a lot of people were killed. And to make matters worse, it attacked the Ethiopian army that was protecting them, and they launched rockets on Amhara region, and at Maikandra they killed hundreds of civilians. Excellency, I know patience is a good thing, but has it not been too costly? If we had engaged in law enforcement prior to this time, couldn't we have reduced the cost? On the other hand, the junta is engaged in a very destructive act. These illegal group, what are the requirements to brand these group terrorists? Why have not we designated it as a terrorist organization yet? Thank you. Honorable Wazir Masarat Abate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and Your Excellency, Prime Minister. I hear with a garment of victory. I thank you for being here. Before going to my question, for those that were attacked just because of their ethnic background, and also for those that were killed in the Northern Division, I express my condolences to their families and to the people of Ethiopia at large. And to win this war and the support given from all over, want to thank the Ethiopian people and also our law enforcement and also our leader, the Prime Minister, and also for the high leaders of our army, the members of the army, and also for Amhara region and Afar militia members. I thank them for raising up our dignity as Ethiopians. I am very grateful. I have two questions, and I would read my questions. First, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, the government of Ethiopia the group that hid in Tigray, measures are being taken by our defense forces and also the Amhara militia. Everybody is in agreement to the measures taken. However, because the measure is a bit late, that gave time to strengthen the terrorist group, and they have also did despicable acts against the Northern Division and civilians. So while this team group was making all sorts of preparations, why was not the government aware of such preparations? Why did not the government act faster? And secondly, that the fact that the terrorist organization has been destroyed, after the team has been destroyed, those that have connection with the team and those within the country and out of the country, the terroristic elements hid here and there within the Tigray region, and they plan to wreak havoc in the country, so to totally dislodge, destroy these groups. What is the government doing? And why do not we designate TPLF and Onek Shane as terrorist organizations? Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and also Excellency Prime Minister. Thank you for being here to respond to our questions. Excellency Prime Minister, with your leadership filled with wisdom and resolution, our defense forces and special militia of Amhara, and also the entire people of Ethiopia, have ensured great victory. We take pride in that, and I would pose the question: in the past 27 years, in the rule and divine and rule systematic leadership of the junta, was a lot of repression, and in the name of democracy and federalism, there was a lot of work to create division and naming this, that, and these, that, giving names to various organs, and there was a lot of inequity in wealth distribution of the country, and following Stalinism, they were killing people, imprisoning people, pushing the people out of Ethiopia, and the struggle by the people has dislodged it, and they fled to Mekelle, and then the constitution system, they were working against it, and illegal elections were held, and also they've been causing all sorts of disruptions, and with wealth that it stole from the country, was inciting divisions and conflicts within the country. And in the northern part of Ethiopia for the past 21 years, our army that was protecting our borders there and helping them economically in all sorts of ways, they engaged in a sudden attack against their brothers and colleagues. It was the act was done while the army was asleep during the night. There was a mass destruction and killing. And in the history of Ethiopia, such a thing has never happened. The entire people were shocked. Ethiopian-born people have asked for justice. So this totally despicable, immoral acts created anger, and as a result, law enforcement actions were taken. We were forced to take into that action, and it was completed within a short period of time. That would give us the chance to go back to our development. And what can we do as a country to continue with our path of development? So this mass destruction must be backed with proper evidences and must be brought into arenas of international justice. And what are we doing diplomatically along these lines? And lastly, in our country, this anti-peace force has planted bombs here and there. What can we do to dislodge this? And why don't we designate ETPLF as a terrorist organization? And also all those people that are engaged in corruption, how do we tackle them? Thank you. Honorable Ato Getachew Melese. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank Excellency the Prime Minister for being here to respond to our questions. Our Amhara people have lived together peacefully for centuries. They have fought for peace and justice all along. However, the rule of law and peace has not been ensured within Ethiopia. And to make matters worse, as time goes on, a lot of destruction and killings has been engaged against Amhara, and this is getting worse, and this is conducted by Onag Shane in collaboration with TPLF, and in addition they are engaged in they're making use of the patients on the side of the government. As you know, they did horrific acts against the northern division of our army. Following that, our army and also Amhara militia did a successful operation to make sure that the leaders face justice, and a lot of victory has been registered. Maybe the shortest victorious battle has been registered during this time. So this has given us peace. However, the Ethiopian people wants to see the junta face justice, and we trust that this would be done. In general, we are very grateful to law enforcement at every level, and also the leaderships therein at various levels. On the other hand, the end is coming to this group, and it was asking for political solution, but they were just trying to buy time, and so the position the government took is proper. However, some international organizations and countries are not clear to what is actually transpiring. So if you would give more elaboration, and also the temporary civil administration that was assigned, if you would elaborate on that. And secondly, recently, 2013, the president of the US gave an irresponsible comment that would not be said by head of state in the 21st century, as an expression of madness. He said a development project in a sovereign land can be boomed. It's very irresponsible, and also a disgrace or an insult, sorry, to our sovereignty. So why don't we take this act into an international court? Can't we hold him accountable for his statements? If you would give some elaborations to the international community on this part. Thank you. Ato Shimelis Ababa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And also I want to thank His Excellency the Prime Minister for being here to respond to our questions. First of all, for the leadership, for the competent leadership you gave, I'm very grateful. And also I want to thank our heroic defense forces and Amhara militia for the victory that they had. We're very grateful. And I will read my questions. The junta traitor has been engaged in divide and rule for the past 27 years, dividing the country along ethnic and religious lines, creating unrest and division while engaging in huge acts of corruption. But because of resistance movement, they were removed after the change. They should have asked for excuse, but however, as if that they had not engaged in any crime, claiming that they were even better. They were belittling the changes that took place in the country and organizing and sending destructive forces all across the country and engaging in all sorts of destructive acts. And they fought with resolution to come back to power. And to make matters worse, they engaged in horrific acts of killing against its own defense forces. This has been painful in the country, quite a disgraceful act of betrayal, brutal act of betrayal. So these traitor organization, we are confident that the government would make sure that they face justice. So our Prime Minister, the mass killings and acts of genocide that are taking place in some parts of Ethiopia, why couldn't we have stopped it ahead of time? And all these atrocities and distraction, some say it's patience, too much patience on the side of the government. If the government had taken action sooner, and if the reform has not been taking place, a lot of an even greater level of destruction could have offered. So by way of law, making sure that rule of law is observed, and also the opinions of the international community and the diplomatic works by our government. If you'd elaborate on that, the traitor organization was engaged in evil acts for 27 years, and also even after the change, it engaged in horrific acts of mass destruction and sending destructive forces all over, and also attacking our own defense forces. It's clear for everyone to see, even by the international community. So this group has engaged in acts that would make it, and also for finance, and also other entities that support TPLF, development organizations that are supporting TPLF. They are engaged in a lot of illegal acts. Now that their accounts are frozen, what is the government doing to hold them accountable for their evil acts?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In addition, the Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, who has come here to answer questions and to give explanations for the questions that are going to be answered. And so I'm going to be presenting my question now. In our country, in all different directions, the changes that have come in our country, and to get it to the place and to establish it, the government has been making a lot of effort. But having said that, and so the TPLF, a lot of work has been done so that all the changes that we have made so that they could also be overturned. And so in a way that is based with tribalism. And so a lot of bad work has been done. In addition, integral region. And so in our northern forces from the inside and also from outside. And so a lot of attacks have also been done. And so different actions have also been taken. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister. And so the first question, and so the different changes that we're doing, and so we've made a lot of different changes here. But the changes that we have made, particularly for the people of the Tigray people, the different work that has been done for them, how is it that we're going to be assessing that issue? Secondly, the TPLF group and also the Eritrean also soldiers, by giving different kinds of evidences that are lies to the international media. And so different kinds of explanation need to be given as to what it is that they've been doing. And so these people who've been killing people, for our government and also for our defense forces, the support that is being given by the government, and so the different forces that are being opposed to this, and so because they're also attacking the people of Ethiopia, and so if there are any messages that you have to give to the Ethiopian people, in addition, the Tigrayan people, so that they can stand with also the government, and so the region also, they can go towards also standard processes. If you can give us explanation, it is something that we're going to be appreciating. Thank you. Thank you. In addition, His Honorable Ato Junaddin Osman, if you can present your question, please. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. His Excellency, the Prime Minister, for all the questions that we're going to be presenting today because he's here, I want to express my appreciation. Thank you. And so this is the question that I have. And so this was on the 3rd week of October. The TPLF, when they attacked the defense forces, and so the government, because it has taken very firm actions and in the different parts of our country, and for our defense forces, and so the government has been showing its support. And in regard to this, and so the government, to protect and to also the rule of law, and to also ensure the unity of our people, and so what kind of work is also being done, and also in addition, in TPLF, on Maikadra, the different kinds of really tough attacks that they have made towards the civilians, and so that they can also not do it in other towns. How is it that we're going to be protecting the people? If you can answer that question, please. Thank you. Her Honorable Wezero Almaz Masala, please. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And so, His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of our country, because he's here to answer the questions that we are asking, and because you're in our midst, I really want to thank you from my heart. And so the defense forces of our country, who are the children of Ethiopia, and also our militia, and so the victory that has been attained in Ethiopia, I want to say congratulations to the whole Ethiopian people. And Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, because you've given very mature and patient leadership, and so because we have also received, according to your leadership, the success we have, I want to say congratulations also to you, Your Excellency. In addition, I also want to present the question that I have, and so here are the questions. And so firstly, that your government in the past 2 years, and particularly to also reduce tribalism, there's a lot of work that the government has been done, and so I think that this is something that cannot be denied. And so those who are trying to bring also divisions, and the media is also that are also trying to bring divisions, and this could be Tigrayan television and also the Voice of Wayane, and also different social forces also. We know that these ones exist, that these media, that the Ethiopian people, and actually the TPLF junta, that they eat and they're never satisfied, and also by giving evidence to the Tigrayan people, and they're confusing the people. And in addition, and also the Tigrayan people, but also by deceiving them. And they're also doing different kinds of operations, and the war, and they've also made it seem that the war is also being waged against the Tigrayan people, and that the Tigrayan people, they're trying to differentiate the Tigrayan people from the Ethiopian people. And so the media, and so a lot of these media also centers are outside of the Ethiopia, and sometimes it's very difficult to take actions because they're not located in Ethiopia. And so the diplomatic work, I think there are works that have been done, and if there are also different plans also to hold these media forces accountable, that would be great. In addition, according to the evidence that we receive, and so the different attacks that have been made towards the northern people, that it has been implemented, and so it has been done by people. And so it is very sad because it's been people that have been living here, and we also have evidence for that. In addition, also, that for many years in the different parts of our country, and so people who love also work, and so people who want changes, and that also the citizens of Tigrayans, and so others also, that and so the terrorist group, and those, and so that those who also follow the junta, and we also believe that there are also those who are engaging in wrong works. And so in addition, for Gambela and Benshangul regions, that in all the areas, and also by extending media also extensions, and also whether it be, and those people are also living with us, those wrongdoers. And so I will tell you that many of those have also been working in the security forces because they have a lot of experience as well, but they are also very wrong, and they are very bad. And so these people, these are plans that are also wrong. I know that it's going to be a serious issue for us to differentiate these people. And so the government has to enable people to participate, and also the wrong works that have been done against the northern people, so that this is also does not extend to other parts of our country. If you can give an explanation, I would appreciate it, sir. Thank you. His Honorable Ato Wajirlu Bilo. Thank you, Honorable Mr. Speaker. And our Prime Minister, that he is here to answer the questions that we have here. I want to thank him for his presence. And so this is what my question is. And so the TPLF group, the bad TPLF group for the past 21 years, and so that on our northern forces, by bringing about attacks, and so the government that has also taken actions to also protect the rule of law in our country, that the Ethiopian people, and so that the people of Tigray can also be made free, that until the peace is also attained in Ethiopia, that this will have to continue. And so this is also the desire of our people. And also as an indication of this, in this week, that in all the different cities of our country, all the support that that has been shown by our people, that the junta, until they are also put behind bars, that this will have to continue. And so, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, that the peaceful the peaceful Tigrayan people, so that the campaign can also finish, that in the next coming times. And so what are some of the actions that are going to be taking place going forward? And also, in addition, the members of the junta group, and so their families, they have sent also their families outside of the country. And so we also know that they've been doing this work. And so themselves, the members of the junta, are they inside the country? And also in the places that they're hiding, how is it that we're going to bring them also to the legal process? If you can give an explanation, I would appreciate it, please. Thank you.
በመቀጠል የተከበሩ አቶ ደርሶ ጎና
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank also His Excellency the Prime Minister for being here to respond to our questions. I'll pose my questions. Our country, Ethiopia, to clear it from destructive forces, the government is engaged in law enforcement operations, and for the leadership you gave and for the victory that we had, I would want to say congratulations to you, Prime Minister, and also to protect the sovereignty of the country, our army, the pride of Ethiopia. Would want to pay my tribute with honor. Excellency, Prime Minister, our country has been suffering from terrorist acts of TPLF and the measures taken against those acts of terrorism is there, and we recognize that, we're in approval of that, but I have the following questions first. The perpetrators that engaged to destroy the constitutional order and system of the country and engaged in lots of terrible crimes and attacking our military force and also sending criminal and terrorist groups all over the country, and the greedy, corrupt TPLF, just like ICIS, and also the Nigerian Boko Haram and the Somali Al-Shabaab. Why is it that we have not yet designated it as a terrorist organization? And secondly, the attack against our northern division of our army, the military officials, high-ranking army officials, why is their case being handled by the High Court? Why is it not being handled by a special military court? And thirdly, in the past 2 years, there's been a lot of reform work in the army. A lot of work has been done to make it free of political influences. However, during the attack against the military, those involved were part of the military from the main office even here in Ethiopia. So how successful has our reform work been in the army? And fourth, the traitor and Banda TPLF has been engaged with several acts of crimes, but the government gave peace chance and handled the case with a lot of patience. However, the patience of the government, they say, has given these terrorist organization time to organize, to engage in such evil acts of attack. If you'd elaborate. Thank you. Honorable Wizaro Mesarat Gitacho. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank His Excellency the Prime Minister for being here to answer our questions. Excellency Prime Minister, the very fast campaign that we just engaged in, and I congratulate you for the victory, and also the Amhara region militia and our army, we take pride in the victory, and I would read my question first. At the moment in Ethiopia, the traitors are engaged in lots of destruction, and many civilians have died, and this has caused severe psychological pressure on the country. So, and also they attacked our army forces that did not expect the attack in any way. They have killed many. So what's the government doing to make sure that they face justice at a military court? And secondly, those groups that want to dismantle the country and engaging in acts of genocide, these are TPLF and Onagshane, and this has been very clear to everybody. Accordingly, why have not we yet designated it as a genocide organization, and how are we going to hold them legally accountable? And thirdly, the extremist TPLF group, the actions taken against it, though, was very successful in a very small amount of time, but rocket attacks against Bahada, Gondar, and Eritrea, and this has continued. How are we going to stop these acts of violence? Thank you. Honorable Ato Mesfin Meshasha. Thank you. I want to thank also the Prime Minister for being here to respond to our questions. I will read my question. Our country being engaged in a path of change, and works have been made to disrupt our efforts of development, and evil forces are engaged in acts of violence, forcing the government to take actions. However, when the government's attention is focused on the northern part of Ethiopia, there could be other forces from within and outside that want to take action against our huge projects. How prepared are we to protect ourselves? Thank you, and Honorable Ato Zewdu Kabere. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, for the attack against our northern division of our army by internal traitors, for the work, for the resolute leadership that you gave, and also for the powerful victory that we registered. I honor you for that. Pose my question. I'll read it first. In order to reverse the development activities that were engaged in, various acts of violence has been conducted by TPLF and its friends, but it has not been successful. But recently, in various parts of Ethiopia, many civilians have been killed. Your Excellency Prime Minister, these destructive forces that operate under TPLF and also TPLF leaders after going to Tigray, they're engaged in all sorts of evil acts all around the country. And they were preparing themselves for a war, but should we have given them ample time to prepare for the evil acts? And secondly, the acts of violence that they were engaged in with dreams to assume power, to come back to power, and they're engaged into all sorts of divisive forces. So, and also the destructive media works that they're engaged in, we fear that it might cause disturbance in our relationship internationally. So what is being done to avert that? And thirdly, TPLF, in the name of democracy and federalism, it had hid themselves, posing itself as working for the country, but disguising itself under ethnic organizations. It's been engaged in destructive acts all over. This has been very clear. So accordingly, the government, why don't we designate it as a terrorist organization? Thank you.
Honorable members of the House, I would like to thank you for giving me the chance to respond to your questions. The questions raised are directly related to the situations we're in at the moment, but for the past 2.5 years we have been in the journey of reform, and it has been in several challenges. And I will also highlight on where we are right now, and I believe that's important. Most of the questions talk about the stance of the government saving the lives of citizens, and these are questions of livelihood. As much as possible, if not everything, I'll try to show you how it looked like from the beginning. First of all, in the past 27 years, the inhuman treatments that took place in the country and the thirst for democracy and good governance in our country is definitely not what I will be covering, because the House knows it very well, despite the fact that the people might from time to time forget what they've been into. I'm sure they will remember, and I will not talk much about that. 1 or 2 months after the reform will be the timeline where I'll begin my narration. As you may remember, 2.5 years ago, a month or two before the reform, there were several conflicts, expropriations taking place in the country, and burying several bodies in one hole, suppressing and subjecting people to cruelty. It was widely observed. Following the reform, we have faced several challenges. The trend that has continued till day, the people who graduated from the same college are causing these acts, and we have to remember this background. Within that time, there were several complainings, warnings, and the tactic they used was to make the people worry, to arrest a lot of people altogether, and to suppress the situation. For example, during the time of the celebration of Recha. The institution that existed to safeguard the country would print so many flags of opposing teams and make them carry it on the street, and would arrest them and use it as a context. And other locations, they will arrest a lot of people for carrying a flag that doesn't have the emblem. This affected the need for the people for change. The need for change did not stop that need. Because of that, right before the reform, there were discussions and attempts for a coup. That discussion for coup d'etat, when it was heard by Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, said, "I'm here to serve. There is no need for a coup d'etat. If you think you don't need Hailemariam, I'm ready to leave my chair at any time," and said there's no need for it, and discussed it with the relevant people. And the rest of us were saying, this is not a coup d'etat, this is a coup of a single person. How does a government coup itself? How do you coup your own intelligence? How do you wage a coup d'etat against yourself? There is no need for such discussions. It can easily be done. That was the discussion at the time. And from among them, there were individuals that did not support the issue. And the discussion of the coup d'etat was reversed. And the discussion started on who the person will be succeeding Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn. In order to ensure the next person will be their favorite person, there was a list of people on whom an active surveillance was done to see if they can be capable. So behind our back, with us knowing, they were surveilling us. There was a car right outside of my gate following me to my office, and it was there wherever I go. Not hidden, but in public. This was also the same for other comrades. There was no need to worry much. You don't need to spend fuel on us. There are several other matters that you need to worry about, not us. But it didn't stop there. There were more tensions, for instance, in Oromia office, the president's office, and the office of OPDO. All the towers were surrounded by shotguns. There were patrols on our gates, or the buildings around us were surrounded by surveillance. During the time, few persons sat and discussed. There could be killings at any time. The struggle we started should not be interrupted. We assumed as if we were killed, as if we were finished. We documented a video that said the government is oppressing us, is going to kill us, and so on. And we kept those videos with people close to us, and we told them to release the video as soon as if those things happen. It was clear that a danger could occur at any time. Following the surveillance, we did a discussion, we had a discussion with the rulers of EPRDF, and released an order for arrest. This was 5-10 days before our election. There was an order to arrest. was written. All this was intended towards removing the people wanted and to put in place persons that look like governments but puppets. Were anti this activity, and many were following the situation closely, and most of them were futile. The Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister had the desire for reform and for the reform to be successful. Not only that, since there were people coming and going between the two groups, we were sending the information they want to hear, and we were also learning about what they were doing, and it gave us time to prepare. When we moved to the election, the first election under EPRDF, for the first time in history, was directed towards brainwashing and changing the minds of people through evaluations. We were assembling a lot, but there was no fruit in those meetings. And on the day of the election, we were discussing on the criteria for election. As you might have heard, it was full of debate. It was nothing less than the war we're having at the moment. And the assembly of the junta was fighting from the side, did a widespread activity, and at the time around 10 p.m. they said we won the election and started celebrating. Before that,
it is in our dead body.
They said it's only in our dead body that these people will come to position. Everywhere you go, wherever they were dancing. After doing that, they faced an unprecedented loss, and those members of EPRDF that wanted change, reform, spearheaded the activities. EPRDF had a lot of discussions, debates to just elect one person. When we met in 4 months in Awasa, I mean, a person's perception won't change that quick. In 10 minutes, except for one person, the remaining 100% voted in just 4 months' time. But one voice was given to me. I voted for my friends. The remaining 100% voted. What does it mean? 3 months prior to that, there was not the need for that kind of debate. Had that been necessary 3 months after that, when there were votings, they would not have given their voices. I would like to make this a background for the House. The second one, after the reform, and after the reform leaders came to power, the special force was under oppression and wanted to do arrestings, surveillances, and so on. And the people of Ethiopia were oppressed and had hatred. And there were oppositions at the time. And in that situation, if we did reform in the country at that time the way it was done before, we would have destroyed each other. Some were oppressed, others were privileged, and because the other group did not have weapons, there would have been killings in the people. So we said, let's have a reform. Let's not have conservative views. Let's avoid debates, unnecessary debates, and let's change the narrative. So we said, let's not say we'll destroy you because you cause damage. We said the damage could be averted in two ways. One is vengeance, the other one is through giving a leeway. We said, let's give them, let them say sorry. If we raise the problems of the past, they were subjected to many cruelty, that lost their fathers, their mothers. And there are so many people that left the country and died in the ocean, fleeing the government. If we take vengeance, of course there will be mass death. So let's come to agreement, peace and love. The politics of hatred never helped us. Starting from zero is pulling Ethiopia backwards. So we said, let this be it. And all the different sessions we had, we communicated the same to the people. And after saying that, the next action should be an all-inclusive government, a comprehensive one. When we say by all, each and every person should contribute a grain of sand. When we say for all, there should not be discrimination between who benefits and who don't, honor and not. And when we say for all, we said so that everyone can benefit equitably. So this is what we wanted to develop. And when we raised the question, they said, you're preaching. This is just a preach. You cannot rule a country by preaching. Ruling a country, they said, should be saying what you say to the people and killing at the back. And they said, you cannot talk about love and rule a country. And they said the government is weak in the end. Perhaps a government is weak. A government is the coming together is not the individual's strengths, rather it's the strengths of institutions. And after developing an institution in a wrong way, of course, you can say the government is weak. A government that doesn't have institutions is weak, no matter what the individuals are. Therefore, on this track, in order to change the existing scenario, did not receive commencement. The Honorable House, many politicians, media started asking why hasn't the government taken actions immediately? Was it not possible to take actions at the time? There are questions like this raised from time to time. This issue has differences between want and action. We can always wish for something, we can dream, we can do that, but undertaking it requires institutional capacity. The major political challenge we have as a country, both on the side of the ruling and the opposition and the individuals, is before we do something, we don't have analysis of power. One government, one party, in all its activities, can only be a winner when it has sufficient knowledge-based, data-based power analysis. What's the power within the inside and in the outside? And if there are conflicts, what are the wins and losses? And these require analysis. Since we don't do that, a person will just rise up and say, I'll be a government. In order to be a government, you need to understand your enemies. You need to understand yourself and the capabilities of your enemy, identifying your capacity and how you can wear down your enemy. You cannot just assemble and become a party in just 6 months and say you'll win. It's just a wish. That's why in the past 40 years we've had political parties that never succeeded, that never made it to power. So the power ranking analysis requires deep analysis. It will just be a wish otherwise. Moreover, we need to also have situational analysis. The institution called government, what does it look like? What does oppositions look like as an institution? What do the neighboring countries look like? What kind of operations will be successful? We need to have such kind of situational analysis. A person who understands it in that way will never ask the question that the actions are delayed. Why? As an individual, let alone my country, let alone the responsibility you give me, I was in a position where I was unable to protect myself and my family. When the day you made me the Prime Minister to make me serve the country, the Ministry of Intelligence and 3 other people were denied access to the palace. And I said, if you say these people are not fit, why do you even trust me? They said it's only the protection we give you that has to prevail. The office I work in is in the hands of this intelligence security. They open and close the door whenever I walk in and out. I was even unaware if there was surveillance camera recording in my room. I was unable to do a counter surveillance to check my office. They will just open the door in the morning, allow me to go in the office and go out. I was unable to discuss using my phone. I couldn't call Mr. Damaka for a discussion and so on. My office was controlled. Moreover, my office in general was under the control of other forces. Even the key to my house was controlled by these people. They opened the door and closed the door, morning and night. This is the scenario I was in when you said, why did he not take actions? So I was unable to safeguard the safety of my family, let alone you. It didn't stop there. I was member of an army, so I started thinking if there were ways where I can escape, and started looking around the compound. And I asked if I can look around the compound. They said this is not usual for the Prime Minister to look around the compound. They said you go to the office and to your house. And they said, when they said your house, it meant inside the house, not even in the premise. I said, I'm not only a Prime Minister, I need to look around my compound. I need to see what's outside. This compound never had identified subcity Kabale, but there were plastics, small houses around it, elderly children, and those type of people around it. So it was not clear whether this was a palace or just a random house. It was surrounded by normal people, and I started asking, what are the roles of these people? What are they doing here? It was never clear. There were toilets everywhere, there were cottages everywhere in the compound, as if it was on the street. No one lives in those houses. So it wasn't a house and office, but I was also under a very dangerous situation. And that's what I understood. So I had to look outside. There was a place where they stored ammunitions on the one side, on the other there were protections, on the other side there was a garage that has a lot of people, and down there were a national intelligence office outside of the law, the constitution, that has special forces. If I escape my office and my house, I can escape the compound. Even the compound is very difficult to leave. So the Prime Minister was basically stranded. In order to free myself from this cage, Honorable House, in order to fulfill the reforms you are requesting, the first discussion needs to be made with my family. And we said, well, this is prison. We can't go out of here and rule a country. So we decided and sent family back home. And considering that there would be killings, suppressions, or anything, we started the first activities. Not as a prime minister, but as an individual in prison, but who can appear in public on the media. You're asking this person to create a reform. And our comrade, including the Deputy Prime Minister, we started analyzing our situation. We said we can write and raise ideas, but if we start discussions with others, it will only reverse our ideas and actions. And we said, how can we make the change or reform people are asking for? And we said, let's follow a sandwich approach. Let's do away with the conventional assembly council. And we said the central administration should follow this approach, and we should communicate with the public and try to understand what they want. I'm expediting the story. We said, let's communicate with the people, let's sell our ideas to the people, and let's make the public the guardian, and let's make sure the people will stand on the side of the reform, and let's also share our ideas. After saying that, we made the first trip to Somali region. The reason is because the current danger was first designed in Somalia. More than 30,000 trained, armed special forces existed in that region with the idea to dismantle the country. Moreover, there were several displacements and killings before that, a month before that. So we said we need to heal that. When we asked to go to Somali region, the intelligence head said, you can't go. You can't go to Somali region. And I said, why? He said, Al-Shabaab is designing to kill you, so you cannot go to Somali region. First of all, I have experience on how information is fabricated, and also This intelligence only had the responsibility of giving me information that helps me make decisions, not make decisions for me. And whenever I asked why, he said the justification is Al-Shabaab will kill you. And my response were two. One, please give me information that helps making decision. And two, you did the major task. Your task is to identify there is a group that wants to kill me. So I said, protect me from these killers and let me do my job. Had you not known about it, it would have made my life very difficult. That now you know it, so protect me and I'll do my job. Then I went to Somali region. We've had great time, we've discussed with the people. Coming back from Somali region, the second trip was to Mekelle. The people of Tigray at the time, given the condition, were affected like any other member of the people. So we approached the people and to alleviate any danger, we started discussing with their language. So we went to Tigray region, sorry. I was never told there is a special force. I went there, we've had a discussion, and the power of the junta was surprised, shocked. The people of Tigray received us very well, and the youths were in need of reform, so they supported. That's when they understood the approach, the sandwich approach. And after Mekelle, they said, we need to stop this. If it continues like this, they will isolate the people and it will be very dangerous. They have had their own discussions. My next trip was to Ambo. It was said I can't go to Ambo because Oneg will kill me, or LF will kill me. A month before that, I was there to discuss with the people that we're going to win, that we're going to change, we're going to have a reform. And they said, there is a force that will kill you, so don't go to LF. I understood then. I said, it's not LF or Al-Shabaab that will kill me. I said, it's the group within that will kill me. So we added additional forces and went to Ambo, security. We've had fruitful time in Ambo, and then we decided to go to Gondar and Bahar Dar. There was a Walqait committee, there were problems at the time, and they said, they plan to kill you, we have their plan, and they said, you can't go. Amara region administration were told to do the underlying activities, and we went. It wasn't only talking to people. The Walqait committee and the command committee, we sat them on a table and have had discussions, and from the discussion our disagreement between us and the intelligence grew, and they said, if you're having discussions with Walqait, you will not be having discussions with us. Following that, in the north, in the east, west, and also to some extent we've had discussions in Addis Ababa as well. So we started taking expedited decisions and actions. We started showing the people what they wanted to see. As you may remember, we were giving emergency news, breaking news saying we have released someone, we have done this and that.
One is political prisoners that were then released. After they were released, they conducted a meeting in Addis Ababa, and they held the flag without the star. They were thrown back to jail again, not even a week in freedom. They were thrown back to prison, and I said, now you should let them go. It's not right. If we arrest people for taking a flag without a star, there was a lot of controversy, but they were freed. And then concerning Ato Andarkacho Tsege, there was a request for his release. It was again very hot controversy involved. He said he's a dangerous person. He's facing trial, death penalty. There was a very strong resistance. Up until this moment, nobody knows who's the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister issues an order, somebody throws it away. So we involved the Attorney General's office in this matter. So we made sure that Andargacho Tsege was released, and when that was done, the situation got worse. It's either you or us. Very hard controversy and conflict, actually. So I said we cannot continue like this. So leaders of security, governments with their own army, media, we cannot continue together. I decided that they need to be removed. So we decided to study the situation. Should we take measures on the defense force only or on the security apparatus only? If we do that on these two entities, how dangerous would it be? When we studied the situation in some countries, the security head and our army head were removed, and there was a lot of destruction in some African countries. We had to learn from history and devise a way to avert destruction. And so when we were forced to do is to remove governments under a government, and that the institutions should remain at an institutional level. What I want to make clear here is at the moment, General Samora, the army commander-in-chief, had done his level best to avert the coup d'etat. Even after the change, he was very supportive and had a spirit of support. It's very clear, something we cannot deny. Though he was in support, we had to change the situation, so we had to honorably lead him to retirement. So we removed the commander-in-chief and also the security head. The response was different. General Samora's response was much better. His spirit of cooperation was there, but the institution had to go through reform, so we had to take measure. After we took this action, the situation got worse and very clear. So the security head they stole various armaments and fled to Mekelle. What I want this parliament to understand is we don't even know what he took from that office. How much of the armament is stolen, we don't know, because the security entity had become a family entity and not really an organizational per se. What purchases have been done, where are the stored, nobody knows, no information whatsoever. When I was told that Al-Shabaab would kill, there were information sent to me, but I never open postal offices. I never do that because it could prove to be costly, dangerous. The institution cannot even report, the security apparatus cannot even report what its own head did. So lastly, as you know, during the parade in support in Addis, there was an attempt on my life. When what that was done, the police, the defense force, and the security all were there. A very, very close attempt on my life that could have proven costly. It's also when we made that search, we find out that bombs, armaments were stolen from the security office.
በዛም ጊዜ ቢሆን ጥርት ብሎ
Even then,
እንደዚህ አይነት
we didn't know
መሳሪያ
the exact type of armaments, the number of armaments that were stolen. Armaments bought from Israel,
ድምፅ የሌለው
silencing with silencing apparatus that could be used in assassinations. From that time onwards,
ከትግራይ ክልላዊ መንግስት ጋር ይህ ግለሰብ
this individual that used to be head of security office, we began conversing with the Tigrayan government, asking them at least he should return the armaments that he stole. And as you know, they have their own media, this individual, the Abai media, using government funds, of course.
ቤተ መንግስትም አስፈላጊ ቦታ የራሱ ወታደሮች
And even in the palace, he has his own soldiers.
እንዳይባል አየሩ አይታመንም።
If I want to travel outside, I don't know what can happen on the air. I cannot trust the airplane.
ሰው ለራሱ ነፃነት ሳይኖረው
So if I do not have a liberty for myself, what can I do? This must be clearly understood by the parliament. It was not something easy.
እስካሁን ያላነሳውን አሁን የምናነሳው
Things that I have not mentioned yet.
አመራሮችም ትምህርት እንዲወስዱ ተቋማትም ከዚህ አንፃር
The reason why I'm disclosing it, that we all to know exactly what we went through, and everybody, including the Ethiopian people, have a right to know history.
ኤስኤስአር እንስራ
So we said, well, let's conduct SSR, Security Service Reform.
ብለን ኢንሳ
So we started with INSA, Security Office, the police, the defense force, the financial intelligence were included, and the reform process.
ሙከራ አደረግን።
We attempted on that.
ሙከራ ስናደርግ
When we did that,
የደህንነት ተቋማት የሚባሉት
security
almost የሉም።
apparatuses,
ግለሰብ
they're not even existent.
የቤተሰብ ማህበረሰብ
They are just family
እውቀት የሌላቸው
organizations,
የተወሰኑ
incapable
የተሰገሰጉ ሰዎች ያሉበት
family members are gathered up in there. So it had to be literally demolished and redone.
መከላከያም ግን
When we look at the defense force,
የራሱ ችግር ስለነበረው
doing the same would be problematic. So we wanted to gather as much data as possible to have a closer understanding, and the results indicated that the defense force
ዛሬ ብቻ ሳይሆን በሚቀጥሉት 5 እና 10 ዓመታት መቀየር የሚያስቸግር ነው።
it was very difficult to change
ለምሳሌ
the defense force within even the coming 5 years. For instance, in the defense force, the full generals
ከትግራይ ክልል
from Tigray region, they constitute 60%, and from the entire other nation, it's 40%.
ይሄ ፉል ስታፍ
This is the full-star generals.
አንድ ስቴፕ ዝቅ ብለን
Going one step lower, major generals,
ሌፍትናንት ጀነራል የሚባለውን
that's lieutenant generals,
ቁጥራቸው አነስተኛ ነው።
the numbers is
ሌፍትናንት
smaller.
ጀነራሎች ደግሞ ከትግራይ አካባቢ 50%።
50% of them were from Tigray region.
አንድ ስቴፕ ዝቅ ብለን
One step lower, major generals, 45% from Tigray. Brigadier generals, 40% from one place. Colonels, 58% from one region. Lieutenant colonel, 66% from one region.
ሻለቃ 53%።
One step lower, 53%.
ምን ማለት ነው ይሄ?
What does this mean?
ጀነራሉን እንኳን ብቀይር
If I change the general, the colonel, and then the lower rank,
ለመሆን ቢያንስ 10 ዓመት ያስፈልገዋል። በሚቀጥሉት 10 ዓመታት መከላከያ ውስጥ ባላንስ
so to bring a balanced army in the coming 10 years, it was quite impossible. From general to lower ranks, 55% are from Tigray region.
ጀነራል አካባቢ እሺ
Among the generals, okay, it could be because of experience,
ሻለቃ ሌተናል ኮሎኔል
but lieutenant colonel, captain, 20 years is enough in an army career.
በ20 ዓመት ውስጥ ሻለቃ
In 20 years, he can become a captain, a colonel. There's no justification that
ነው ትግል ነው ምናምን
would
ይባል እንኳን
prevent that.
የተሰራው ስራ ግን አሁንም
So, but the work done, but even now, even 5 years, in 10 years, we cannot think of a reform, because potential leadership is expected to come out of a certain region.
ትግራይም አይጠቅምም።
This would not benefit Tigray, it would not benefit Ethiopia.
ባለው የህዝብ ቁጥር ልም
Tigray, as per the number of its population, must of necessity participate in defense forces, must protect its country, be it Tigray or Oromia or Amara or Benishangul, to get a bigger share would create the problem that we're facing now. It's not beneficial at all. So I just talked of high-ranking officials with ranks. When we look at other positions of authority, like in a defense headquarters, like divisions of people of leadership, 80% of them are from Tigray region. The first scenario was 55%. But those in position in offices, 80% of them, the staff in the headquarters, 80% from Tigray region. What does it mean? He knows what's the purchasing, training, communication, everything is controlled by people that come from one region. Let's go a bit lower level. From defense forces, there are other forces, divisions, you can say. The divisions that Ethiopia had, the leaders, 100% were from Tigray. Deputy leader, from 100% from Tigray. In all divisions. Not only this, like in the northern and east, it could be Amhara, like in logistics, but in the northern, the commander, deputy commander, logistics, administrator, all the 4 members of the committee are from Tigray. Why the north division? I would elaborate later. This is a division. Let's go even a step lower. Like subdivisions, mechanized and foot soldiers, 100% mechanized subdivisions, 100% are Tigrayans. Like the foot soldiers, 80% leaders are from Tigray region. So they don't actually lead, but just count number of generals. We're going a step lower, mechanized brigades, 85% are from Tigray. Foot soldiers, 80% from Tigray. Look at it from brigade up to the defense forces. It does not involve people from other regions. If we maybe say, let's look at the training department, in the 80% of it are Tigrayans. So if we bring in new people, because the trainers are from them, it would be problematic. So everybody needs to know of these facts, that this should not repeat in the future. As true professionalism must be taken into account, because it's not a parliament. It's constituting from every ethnic group may not be a must, but our army must have a representative picture, and this is constitutional. The constitution makes it mandatory. We have to build an army that looks like the country. Let's now look at the entire army, the strategic policies, the directives, training manuals. We gathered these and began to look at it. I don't need to be a general, and nobody needs to be a commander. The army was built. The red book, 100%, is against the constitution, blatantly. The book says you protect the party. If revolutionary democracy is touched, stand up and fight. So all this idea of democracy in election is a farce. If there is no revolutionary democracy, you cannot see the Ethiopia that you want to see. They say the foundation of Ethiopia is the ideology of the party. So it's only when that ideology and that party exists that Ethiopia exists. So even if we have representatives from other ethnic backgrounds, it quite useless because of the prevailing ideology. So the partisanship of the army, we found it to be very dangerous. I was very clear understanding, but trying to do something about it was something else. For instance, in Sidama region, when Olaitas were killed, the commander there is the general that assisted the destruction at the northern division, standing from the headquarters. Our Walaita in Sidamas do not kill each other. They have lived there for centuries. But it's the hierarchy, the apparatus. It has money, it has a mission. It incites violence, it creates killing of one another, and at the same time, it's that organ that is supposedly to enforce the law. In Ethiopia, the security apparatus in the past 2.5 years, the major perpetrators of violence, those that killed and destroyed property, there were 113 acts of incidents, violent incidents, 113, not including the recent ones. What does that mean? Every week there was preparation for war. The government was to cry, bury this, and then move on to the next burial service. It was purposely in an organized manner to stop any acts, any work of development. When all these transpired, when 113 conflicts transpired in almost all regions, but nothing happened in Tigray. They are not even ashamed of this. They say there's nothing going on in our region. Some external people, they say only peace exists only in Tigray region. It's true, but because the perpetrators are there themselves. So the wounds, they stir up wounds everywhere, created conflicts between people. It involved finance, training, dispatches, and the media is also there. The media says they speak in advance. Oromo killed Amaras and this and that, both in ordinary medias and social media, and some gullible people believe that and involve in further bloodshed acts. So to create ethnic conflicts and religious conflicts, they have done their level best. Have they succeeded? People have died, but their purposes has not been successful. They have created havoc in property, killed innocent civilians. If you consider that success. But not only that, if a person is displeased and leaves the country to Kenya, he goes to Kenya, some goes to Uganda, somewhere else, believing that the host country would receive them. But one Gojame, if he says I would go to Ambo, they say if the Ambo people are my people, if I get hungry, they would feed me. If I get sick, they would take care of me. That's why they goes there. If they don't have the site trust, they would not go there in the first place. So people that have gone there, lived together for centuries, lived together, intermarried, have been together here, up and down together, these evil forces incited conflicts and fear among these groups of people in the past 2.5 years in Oromia. There were 37 conflicts, and Shashamene, Guliso, Bale was religious, and also Harage, Guji Wallaga, Chenaksan, and also in other places. In the past, in these 37 conflicts, those that suffered, Amharas and other ethnic groups are there. There are many Oromos that the families were dismantled, father died, mother died, wife died. So this force, making Oromia a center of conflict and confusion, and creating conflict between Oromo and other people groups, and trying to bring religious conflict. And but they claim that we fight for the sake of Oromos. And in 37 conflicts, when you look at the data, many Oromo mama has been left without a husband or without a father. Oromo has been made to fight against people that lived. This is a loss for Oromo, for Amara. It's a loss for the entire country. If anybody is to benefit from this, this is this evil force. In Amhara region, there had been 23 conflicts. In Kamata, Ataye, Oromia Special Force, and also in Mota, that was religious conflict. By the way, I would come back to it later. At every region, with those ethnic groups within the country, and also with regional states, and sometimes even with other countries, attempts have been made to create conflicts. And same in Amara. Many have died. For instance, in Kamant, when you look at it, as you might all know, in Amara region, around Gondar, there is this tradition of intermarriage, living together with ethnic groups. There are a lot of Eritreans, Tigrayans, Oromos, Kamans. Many people have intermarried. That's the city and the region, the area rather. Kamant and Amara, it's really hardly difficult, possible to differentiate them. And at Amara leadership, quite a number of them, their wives are Kamants. The children are half Kamant and half Amara. It's one family, one language, one culture, one tradition. They don't have any problem, but this conflict has been sponsored so that there will not be peace in Amhara. There will be ethnic conflicts within the region, and many have died and suffered destruction. In Benishangul, there were 15 conflicts. Matakal, around Asosa, both from Amara and Oromia, there was lots of displacements. Dangu, as you all hear, the farmer, he goes to his land and is killed. It's become a common news. In Addis Ababa, there were 14 conflicts. What surprises me from among the conflicts is the killing of artist Achalu Hundessa. The assassination of Achalu Hundessa. There were among 10 people assigned already for assassinations from Prosperity Party, and renowned people were already marked for assassinations, first from Oria region and then from Amhara regions, killing authorities to make it look like there is a conflict between Amara and Oromo. A lot of work had gone into that. We've lost Achalu, and we were able to avert further assassinations. What surprises me about Achalu is a couple of years ago there was an issue. Why did Achalu Hundensa had a viewing on Oromo TV? We faced a lot of criticisms from them. They themselves now were the first ones to announce the Oromo liberation fighter Achalu was assassinated. You know what transpired after that. In Gambela, there were 7 conflicts.
ስደተኞች ካምፕ ጭምር
and the camps also, refugee camps, there was conflicts, and in the north, as you know, the case of Gedio, Guraverda, Konso,
ሚዛን ቴፒ ላይ
Mizantepi, in other parts also,
በተለየ ጌዲዮ
especially in Gedio,
በጣም የሚገርመው በጌዲዮ እና በጉጂ
between
መካከል
Gedio and Guji,
በሁሉም መመዘኛ
and
አንድ ቤተሰብ የሚባል ህዝብ ነው።
at every measurement you can say it's one family, but they created conflict, hatred, animosity.
ደቡብ ላይ
In southern part, a
ተጎድተዋል።
lot of people have
ህዝቤ
been
ወገኔ ብሎ
damaged.
ሌሎች ብሔሮች እንዲሁ ተጎድተዋል።
Other ethnic people that came to their own people have been killed. In Jijiga, in Afar,
ከኢሳ ጋር ተያይዞ
in connection with Essa,
ሶስት ግጭት ነበር። አፋር
was
ላይ
3
ድሬዳዋ ሶስት
conflicts in
ነበር።
Dredoa, there
ሀረሪ
was
ሁለት
3 in
ነበር።
Harare, there was
ሲዳማ
2
ላይ
in
ሁለት
Sidama,
ነበር።
we had 2.
ቅድም ያነሳሁት
I've mentioned it earlier.
ይሄ ሁሉ ሲሆን
All these
በዚህ
being
መልክ
done,
ትግራይ ላይ አንድም ግጭት
there was
አልነበረም።
not even a single incident in Tigray.
በሽራሮ
In Shiraro,
ሽራሮ የሚገኙ ኩነማዎችና
the
ትግራዮች
Kunamas and the Tigrays never fight.
በሐዋሳ ግን ወላይታና
But in
ሲዳማ
Awasa, Walaita and Sidamans fight.
ኢሮብ አካባቢ
In
ያሉ
Europe,
የኢሮብ ህዝቦች
there are
ትግራይ ላይ
Europes, they
አይጋጩም።
don't fight with Tigrayans.
መጋጨትም የለባቸውም።
They should not do that.
ሌላ ቦታ ግን
But in other parts of the country,
በእያንዳንዱ ክልል
in
ብቻ
various
ሳይሆን
regions, not only
ክልል
that,
ከክልል
but region against region,
ለምሳሌ
also
አማራ
regional state against regional state. For instance, in
ቤንሻንጉል
Amhara,
ተጋጭተዋል።
his neighbors with
ኦሮሚያ
Benshangul, there was
ዋስነዋል፣
clashes. There
ተጋጭተዋል።
was with Oromia, there was
አፋር
clash.
ዋስነዋል፣
With Afar, there was
ተጋጭተዋል።
clashes.
ትግራይ
In
ዋስነዋል፣
Tigray,
ተጋጭተዋል።
there was no conflict there.
አፋር
Afar,
ኦሮሚያ ዋስነዋል፣
borders with
ተጋጭተዋል።
Oromia, there were conflicts.
ሶማሊያ
Borders with
ዋስነዋል፣
Somalia,
ተጋጭተዋል።
there were
አማራ
conflicts with
ዋስነዋል፣
Amara also, there were
ትግራይ
conflicts.
ዋስነዋል፣ አልተጋጨም።
But there was a border with Tigray, but there was no conflict.
አፋር ላይ ገጠመን
The incident in Afar
ትንሽ ለመረጃ ስለሚጠቅም እሱን ላንሳላችሁ።
would be worth noting here.
አፋርና ሶማሌ መሀል ግጭት ይፈጠራል።
There was a conflict between Afar and Somali,
ሲፈጠር የሁለቱም ክልል አመራሮች
so the regions of the two, the leaders of the two regions,
ግምገማ ስንቀመጥ
we called them.
የአፋር ፕሬዝዳንት
So the president of Afar, Honorable Ato Abwal, he said something of
አፋርና
great. He said,
ሶማሌ ድሮም ይጣላል።
with Afar and Somali, we had conflicts all along.
አዲስ
It's
አይደለም።
not something new.
የአሁኑ የአፋርና የሶማሌ
But
ነው ብላችሁ ታስባላችሁ?
But the current one, do you think the conflict is actually between Afar and Somali? When I asked to elaborate, they said in this conflict women are dying. Afars and Somalis never kill women.
አዲስ ባህሪ ነው አለ።
This is something new, he said. And secondly, he said, Afar and Somali, they fight during the night, never fight during nights. They do it only night. But this is involves fights during the night also. And thirdly, Afar and Somali,
በግልጽ እየተናገረ የሄደ ይዋጋል እንጂ
they
አፉን ሸፍኖ በመሸፈኛ
blatantly they speak and fight with no coverings and with no masks. But now the situation is different.
መከላከያን
So the defense forces,
ኃይልን አውጣ፣ የሶማሌን ክልል ኃይልን አውጣ፣ የአፋርን ክልል
we
ኃይልን
gave
አውጣ።
instructions
ፌዴራል ፖሊስ
that federal police and the federal army should remove,
ፎርስ ነው ከዚህ የሚሄደው።
and then we decided to send in a federal a special force
መከላከያን
Republican.
ካየህ ምታ፣
We gave them commands
የአፋር ሶማሌ
to
ክልል
shoot
ካየህ ምታ፣
at
አንድ ሰው
any
እንዳይጠቃ
other force around.
ሁላችሁም ውጡ ብለን
So we gave commands for all other forces to leave.
እንኳን ግድያ
After that,
ድምፅ የለም፣
it was quiet, total quiet.
ድምፅ የለም።
Not a
ከሁሉ
not
ጋር
a
መከላከያን
noise.
አውጥተን
We cannot remove the defense forces from everywhere
መከላከያ ባለበት አካባቢ ቅድም ባልኳችሁ
where there's a
የሚፈጠረው
presence
ግጭት
of
ደግሞ በከፍተኛ ደረጃ
defense
ተባብሷል።
forces.
በዚህ ውስጥ በጣም የሚያሳዝነው
And here, something that's very sad,
ሱዳን ጋር የገጠመው ሁኔታ ነው።
our situation
የሱዳን
with
ህዝብ
Sudan,
ተደጋጋሚ እንዳልኩት
as
በዚህ
I
ሀገር
repeatedly said,
ትልቅ ውለታ የዋለ ህዝብ ነው። አሁንም በዚህ ሁኔታ ውስጥ
the
ከፍተኛ
Sudanese
ድጋፍ
people
ያደረገ በኋላ መጣ።
have done a lot of good.
ነገር ግን ለሱዳንም የተወሰኑ ሰዎች ሄደው
So
መከላከያ ማለት እኮ እኛ
some
ነን፣
people went to Sudan.
እኛ እንወጋህን፣ አሁን ነው ጊዜው መሬት
They
የምትወስድበት፣
said,
መግባት
now
ትችላለህ ብሎ
the door is
የቆሰቆሱት
open
እኛ ነው።
and you can fight. People say
የሱዳን
that from
መንግስት
here,
ግን እኔ
but
በኃይል
the government of
ሳይሆን
Sudan
በህግ
said, I will not
ይገባኛል
use
የሚለውን ነገር
force,
ብሎ መረጃውን ሰጥቶታል።
but I would go the legal way.
እዚህ የሚያጋጩን አለበቃ ሲል እዛም ተወጣ። ሶማሌ ክልል ብትሄዱ ሲሚላርሊ ይሄኛው መንግስት ሞቃዲሾ ይደግፋል እና አይደግፍም እያሉ
supports
ሶማሌዎች
Mogadishu, and so they were trying to make us get in fight with Somalia as well. The same happened in South Sudan also. it didn't end within the country. Following that, the army of the commando were armed and came to the palace. You remember that time, around 200 forces. From the time they came to the time they surrounded the palace, we'd never had information. So causing disputes between people was not enough, so they had to come here. They came to the compound. That also was futile. Illegal movement of arms and money took place, widespread, and there's orchestrations get out of religion, people and ethnicity and entered into prosperity. And the people who gave their life for the reform also said, let's get into an agreement with these people because we can't handle them. They said, this reform will not be success, and said, let's agree with them. But I said, we can't agree with the devil unless you identify them. The power within us was dismantled. The opposition got in a different opinion. The people attitude changed. Many fingers were pointed towards us, and they started saying, the previous government is good. You need a strong government. They started campaigning that. The people of Tigray was made not to get closer with its neighbors, so they were saying the federal government, the Amara and so on are going to kill you. They were playing with their minds. The general Ethiopian people were suspicious. They were never trusted coming back home. They were filled with fear. The government was surrounded with agendas aimed at reversing the reform. They created multifaceted activities. As I've said earlier, the security service reform, especially the army, was very important. If we change that, of course, the conflicts here and there will continue. And we said the reform is important to change this for once and for all. So 3-level change took place: higher level, middle level, and lower level. The higher level administration, starting from the general to a commander to a captain, around 55% was reduced to 26%. Before this conflict, 26% of higher officials were from Tigray. The number was enormous, but there needed to be, or we had a feeling that equal share should exist within the army. We said, let's reform it. We were not saying we don't need Tigray in the army. After making that 26%, we reduced from the total to 25. What the people should understand is that until the time of the reform, Major General was the highest rank for southern people representatives. Around 50% of the South got Lieutenant General, around 50% after the reform. Why? Because 25 from South, from Oromo and from Amara. If something happens, we would open the room for all to be capable. So we made a room for that, because we think there are people capable. It wasn't an issue of capacity. They have proved that during this time also. The mechanized division also required professionalism. So we have 50% Tigray right now from 100. It wasn't easy to simply change it. The troops subdivision from 80 to 40%, mechanized division from 80 to 44, the troops to 40%. We've managed to make it around 50%, staffs to 25%, and also training to 25%. This was the higher level readjustment. Amara, Tigray, South were also incorporated. Those people who were removed and also at a higher level, at a higher rank, were never retired before their time reached. Previously, about Adasa and Baja Dabele were Lieutenant General at the time, so they were removed previously. But we didn't make the same mistake. We retired only people who reached the age of retirement and said we have to stand firm to that position. The second readjustment was the middle level administration. The captains there was a lot of problem at the rank of captain. The general is a political assignment. A colonel can be a general in 6 months, in a year sometimes. But a captain, unless he makes extra activities, he will not become a general. If we remove them, of course it will be a problem for the country, because the country got into these problems because of the reforms we did in the army. When we make these reforms, the forces that come out of here have their own buildings in the city, and after retirement they started assembling their own army. So if we remove the middle administration, definitely they will go there and build their own army and make us vacant. So we said it will make us weak and make the other party strong. Since it's a carrier, if they leave here, they will go somewhere. So it needs years. The third is the lower level administration. In the past 1.5 years, 2 years, the trainings given by the government and discussions never took place in the army. The change in the strategy, making it the army of Ethiopia and to be governed by the constitution and by the people of Ethiopia, to not be the army of prosperity. If it becomes the army of the prosperity, it will be definitely a problem. They had questions of salary, uniform. We tried to fulfill those and prepare the lower level. It was impossible to complete it in 2 years. It needed time because it requires time. We were unable to leapfrog. The second problem is any discussions we're having within the council or anywhere would reach the junta, and the junta would start its own discussion. The authority was not as it was before. We couldn't assemble and discuss at night and decide in the morning, so it was fruitless. And therefore, if the livelihood of Ethiopia and its people is at stake, after dividing the 3 administrations within the army, we had secret divisions also. The first one was the Republican Guard. The Republican Guard, as it stands today, completed its mission. We don't need it anymore. It can be member of the army. We decided to have a special force to do a surgery, to do operations. So we trained highly qualified special forces. That was what we try to do. If there comes a problem, they will be there to solve it. And two, it was the Air Force. We had to revitalize the Air Force. It required technology, and especially we needed drones and UAVs, and we did multifaceted activities in that regard. We didn't allow them to see the types and models. It was a secret reform. When the special force were showing activities, they were looking at them, but they don't know their capabilities. They know few information, but they don't understand the entire operation. Few days before the war, some people visited the army. Some of you asked, why are they showing us the army? We wanted to show them that the Air Force is as you know it. We didn't want them to know what we prepared for them. So when they saw the Air Force and the army, they said, there is no preparation, so we're okay. Regarding the drone, we heard several news. You can go and see it for yourself. We planned it for years. It's a capacity build for years. But regarding the drone, the junta power, it was not hidden from them. I didn't hide it from them. We will get into a modern fight. And I told them, we have this equipment, so don't get into a fight. But they did not believe me, because it was impossible for them to see it within their network. So they didn't accept it. But this power, this force, left Mekelle and assembling around Agara Salam. What I want them to hear is that last night, around midnight, we've heard several problems in Abiyadi and Agara Salam. We have seen their activities live. We didn't attack them at night because on retreat they took their children and their wives with them. They took members of our troop as well. There were several disturbances within the people. We saw it, we didn't attack, and we came back. But this will not continue. The second one is related to civilians. What really surprises me is that the Air Force and the Special Force in general, the Ministry of Defense, the Honorable House. One thing I want you to understand is that when a MiG goes to the other side, it will be the responsibility of the captain to control the navigation and for the execution. It wasn't like that. It's not like that with the drone. The drone, every direction, every target is inputted, and every target is signed and approved. The Honorable House can see that. Every missile launched is backed by a signature of an authority. 99% hit their target. 99% did not have collateral. When it was suspicious, we don't fire, especially at night, because we don't want to kill children. They're ours. Between the Special Force and the Air Force, the capacity created was unassumed by the enemy. They assumed drone for firing, but we're using drones to surveil, to monitor their activities. We're watching them day and night. In relation to civilian damage, we made sure extra caution is taken. Under no circumstances in 3 weeks in Humara, in Dansha, Shirare, Adagara, Adwalala, Adnabid, Adalom, Shere, Sadatnaka, Aksum, Adwa, Adigrat, Zalambasa, Makale. Not even a single person was killed in these cities. No country's army can show such a performance. Our army is disciplined and victorious. They said, you will destroy Makale and so on. Makale is ours. It was built with our own resources. We're not going to destroy it. Not even a single person was affected, damaged by the operation in Makale. But there are questions raised. Why are you using special force? Why are you using air force? Why were you not working on the mechanized forces? People definitely ask. It's easy to ask, but doing it is difficult. We couldn't use mechanized forces because it requires money. Do you know how expensive a tank is? We cannot invest that much resource at this time. However, the missile the junta is using, the one it stole from the army, the rockets, we have double, triple that amount, that capacity. But they don't know we have the same capacity because it has to do with intelligence. We didn't launch a single rocket to Tigray. Why are we sending rockets to? It's something that travels in kilometers and falls somewhere. We don't even know who it's going to affect. Our pilots, if they see civilians in the area, they come back without attacking. We decide after surveilling using our drones. But rockets are very dangerous. Even though we have better capacity, we won't use it. We're not the junta. We have responsibilities. We conduct ourselves responsibly. So the problem with mechanized was money. The second problem is, and also what I want the people to understand in the House to also take into account, is that most of us fight on Facebook. In the past year and a half, we wanted to open the army, let alone the other regions from Amara and Oromo, from these two big regions. It was difficult to even get 1,000 people. No one wants to be part of the army, but will question whether we are protecting the country or not. This only serves a purpose for Facebook. There was no need to be recruited. There was no desire to be part. If a youth becomes part of the army, it will make him a full person. In many countries, people serve before they join the labor force. When you recruit someone to the army, out of 100 million people, it was difficult to find 5,000 people. The people of Ethiopia should think about this. It's very dangerous. Member of the army means a person who says, I'll serve my country even if you deny him food for 5 days. An army means a person who doesn't have a house to run his family, who gives his life for his country. The preparedness of the people, the Ethiopian people, was very, very low in terms of that. You need to take this into consideration. We can only succeed if you agree to participate. That's the only way we can protect our country. The other one is the diaspora. The diaspora, as you know, they love their country. When something happens, they'll be pissed. They go out on campaigns. But the diaspora were also supporting the junta in finance. Several times we said this power or this force was getting more foreign currency more than the government. They were giving weapons with which their brothers were killed.
አውቃለሁ በህገወጥ መንገድ ገንዘብ ሲመጣ ትርፍ ይኖረዋል።
We know that when money comes into the country in an illegal means, there are benefits, there are profits, but it might kill your brother, your own brother. We can make it legal and we can find ways of adjusting,
ንጹሃን ዜጎችን የሚጎዳ
but it
ስለሚሆን
should not be used for the enemies, for illegal groups, so it kills our citizen. So we have to watch ourselves in that regard.
የኤስኤስአር ሪፎርም
Notwithstanding this, the SSR reform, the security service reform, however
በሌሎች
developed it is,
ሪፎርም ካልሰራ
unless we do reform in other sectors,
ላይ የተሟላ የሆነ የምናስበውን ሰላም
we will not have a comprehensive peace in the country.
አንደኛው
The first one is political reform,
ወታደሩን ተዉትና ፖለቲካ ውስጥ
setting aside the army in the politics. If EPRDF fails,
የሚባል
there was a notion, a negative notion that Ethiopia will be dismantled. A country that was formed
በሱ ህልውና
a year ago
እንድትመሰረት አድርጎ ማሰብና መስራት በጣም አደገኛ ነው።
cannot be trusted to carry the country, all in all.
ፓርቲው እሳቤው እንደዛ ነበር።
That was the assumption within the party. There is no country if we don't exist.
ከዚህ ጋር ተያይዞ ወደ ፓርቲ ሪፎርም
In relation to that, when we enter into a party reform, when
ለቀቀ የሚሉ ሰዎች አሉ።
people say TPLF left
ብልጽግና ሳይፈጠር
when
ወደ
prosperity
ሐዋሳ
was
ጉባኤ
created.
ስንል
That's wrong. When we went to
ሴንትራል ኮሚቴ
Awasa, TPLF Central Committee have had a discussion and said we'll not go to Awasa and take part
ሪዛይን ካደረጉ ቆይተዋል።
in the discussion.
መረጃው አለ።
We knew there was that cult. We have had the information.
ወጣ ውስጥ ሆነን እናምሳቸው።
Some of them that made it to the meeting said we'll get information, we'll cause disturbance within them, and said it's better to dismantle them than not to go.
ሐዋሳ
So they joined us in Awasa.
የነበረው የኢህአደግ መድረክ
The PRDF council in Awasa was full of debates. Some of them were saying let's accept Algiers
በሰላም
agreement, let's give the land
ኢህአደግ ስራ
to
አስፈጻሚና እነዚህ አሁን የወጡ የሚባሉ ሽማግሌዎች
Eritrea,
ባሉበት በሙሉ ድምጽ የተወሰነ
and the decision was made unanimously, including
የደህንነት ሹሙ ነው እንዲወሰን
their members.
በቃ ብሎ
The head of the intelligence also was voting for that.
ራሱ የወሰነው ውሳኔ ግን እንዳይፈጸም ሁለት
It was also deliberated here in the House, but after making the decision, he made sure it's not executed. There were three fronts.
አንደኛው አስተላለፍ
The first front,
ስብሰባ ስንጀምር
when we started the meeting, there were groups that were insulting, making it more of a debate. They were assigned for that strategic purpose. And the second ones were that opposed them and acted like they were supporting. And the third group were trying to mediate.
ይሄ በስነስርዓት ታቅዶ
This was designed, they deliberated on it, and they assigned people for that activity also.
የሚውለው ኃይል
That party that was raising hand and supporting us would leave the room and then say something different on the media. And the people insulting within the discussion, you'll not see them outside in public.
አሮጌ አቁማዳ አዲስ ወይን አይነት የነበረ ስልት ነው። ከዚያ በፊት ነበር እንደዚህ አይነት
This is an old strategy. They were using this in the past as well. We knew about it, so it didn't affect us as much.
መድረኮቹ ግን የጭቅጭቅ የንዝንዝ
But the assemblies, the discussions were made, were affected by these activities.
ፓርቲ የሚወያይበት ሚስጥር እንዲወጣ
They were
ከፓርቲ ውሳኔ ውጭ በተቃርኖ ለህዝብ መናገር
trying to disclose the discussions of the party, opposing activities, hiding
ኢትዮጵያ
criminals.
ለሁሉም ተቋም ይኑራት ሲባል
When we said let's have institutional capacity for Ethiopia, they were saying how is Afar and Somali having equal voices the same as ours. They were raising this type of ideas.
ፖለቲካ
The politics of Ethiopia in terms of the ruling party,
የብልጽግና መፈጠር ነው።
their loss for them was the establishment of
ቆረጥ አድርጓል።
prosperity.
የብልጽግና መፈጠር
It was a victory.
በእርግጥ ብልጽግና አህዳዊ ነው፣
Perhaps they said prosperity is unitary and so on. It's not a unitary government. Prosperity stands for federalism. Prosperity believes that all nations and nationalities are respected for their language and ethnicity. It doesn't discriminate between groups. It doesn't discriminate against languages. This is not what we fought for. This is why we want to create institutions whereby all people take part. These forces said, how is a terrorist group coming into the country? They kept saying that for a while, but later they created a federalist group with a terrorist. When we said, let's have them come to the country, they debated. But later they became friends and tried to create a federalist group. This reform in the party and the activities of the TPLF junta came from Kuomintang, when the China Liberation Party, when they were bringing freedom to the country, they created Taiwan. They've had economy, power. Kuomintang had one advantage. Taiwan had a cost. All members, including the parliament, went there. And I told them, secession is not good for you. It will not benefit you. You can only benefit when you align with Ethiopia. Don't even think about it. The experiences of ABC were disastrous. And I said, like Kuomintang, the old ideology, and they tried to operate in a political way, taking that into consideration. The economy was slowed down. There was macroeconomic imbalance, unemployment. Our projects, small or large ones, they were halted because of corruption. We were having difficulty paying salaries and loans outside of the problems I mentioned to you earlier. Without having these reforms, whatever we do for the army, it will be disintegrated. So the economy required a reform. So there were a lot of reforms in the economy. And the major problem we faced later on was changing our currency. When the time comes for that, the reform was coming to success, and the world was looking at Ethiopia in terms of the success in the economy. They were seeing that we were able to execute. I will not divulge into it for the sake of time, but government enterprises, the bank sectors, like the army, were surrounded for destruction, to extract resources. The format in the army and the intelligence existed in the telecom, in ELPA, sugar, and so on. I will not divulge into those, but the economic reform was very critical. The third critical area that needed reform was legal reform. Regarding the law, there were suppressing laws in the country that narrowed the political platform that we opposed. We divided this into three. The first one was suppressing laws that narrowed the political reform, needed revisions. The CSO organizations proclamation needed to be loosened. Perhaps several NGOs were undertaking other activities outside of their mainstream job. We will solve those as we go, but it was one of the proclamations that needed to be changed. The second one is Electoral Board Revision Proclamation. It needed to stand out as an independent democratic institution, trusted and organized, so that it can perform its activities aligned with the constitution. But it was also suppressed by a proclamation, and we undertook the activities, you know. The third one is electoral law. The parties' rules and so on, and how we operate, the procedures. So there was a legal reform in that as well. The other one is Human Rights Commission. As you know, our cadres controlled it. After the reform, we strengthened the institution.
Increased, but comparatively, it's a liberal, free institution. The other one, submersive role, is the anti-terrorist law. Was very destructive, and we came up with the improvement. The worst one is that of prison administration law. After a person is indicted, there were all sorts of beatings, dark rooms, unknown prison places who were against human rights, and that punishment cannot involve depriving food, depriving TV, that their human rights would be supported, and budget has been allotted to that, and also the media law that you know. Prior to the change, the website and blockers, more than 280 were blocked. The conventional media were being jumped. If that was not the case, dishes would be put in place, undestroyed dishes, but we changed that. Abuses, we can come up with improvements along the way, but we took care of this suppressive laws. And the cabinet was engaged in work from Monday to Friday. Meetings were held on Saturdays. This is something new. We wanted to take more time to work because there was a lot of accumulated things to take care of. Apart from these suppressive laws, there are other laws also, the trade law, mediation laws. We have signed the UN law, so we wanted to come up with a law that incorporated mediation, and this would be of great use in the economic arena also, and also to make Ethiopia conducive for international trade. They had their own positive contributions therein. And thirdly, great documents that stay there for 60 years, laws that were in place for 60 years, that came from the time of the king. Reform works has been done, criminal law, penal law procedure. It was there for 60 years. It's a big document. It has not been touched upon for 60 years, but that work has been done. The trade law, procedural laws, all sorts of laws have been gone through reforms, and also we had political reforms, economic reforms, and also law enforcement also underwent reforms. And the fifth critical area is diplomacy. When we come to diplomacy, we had two problems. One is Ethiopia as a country without a port. Secondly, the geopolitics. There are forces that want to weaken Ethiopia. They are still active, and they were there in history. If we don't work in close contact with our neighbors, and that was proved if we had not made peace with Eritrea, you know what could have happened these days. Our reconciliation is a matter of individuals, but that of people.
የኤርትራ ህዝብ
more than Eritrea government, the Eritrea people has demonstrated this clearly. I would come back to this later when we go to Somali.
እኛ እኮ እናንተን አናምናችሁም በክልል ከፋፍላችሁ
They said we don't trust you because it's you who create division. It's your government that's creating havoc. We hate you, they said.
የሚል ሳይደብቁ ነገሩ
They say this blatantly, openly. When we go to South Sudan,
ባላበት ነገር በሙሉ የእናንተ
they said it's you who created division and conflict in our eyes. They said you gave Suyum Musfin and created havoc and division between the two of us. It's you.
ጎረቤት በሙሉ እናንተ እኮ ብሎ የሚጠላት ሀገር ነበር
As everybody hates Ethiopia as a neighbor. The parliament needs to know this. So this internal division has also gone abroad, be it ethnic and otherwise.
ከፍተኛ ጥላቻ ነበራቸው
So they harbored hatred against us, and to change these and to come up with a positive relationship with our neighbors' countries.
ክብር
And then we should give priority to the dignity of citizens. That's the way we went about it. The first issue was that of Eritrea. We decided together the decision was not from prosperity. It's the junta that decided this. They said, let's recognize the Algiers agreement.
ግን እርቁ እንዳይፈጸም
But to stop the reconciliation, there is nothing that they have not attempted.
እንዳይፈጸም
The decision was there, common decision.
አልፎ አልፎ የግለሰቦች ዝምድና ነው አልፎ
Say
አልፎ
sometimes they say it's individuals coming together and this and that, but now
የነበረውን የኢትዮጵያ መከላከያ ሰራዊት
the junta has dehumanized
ራቁቱን ኤርትራ ሲልከው የኤርትራ ህዝብ አለበሰ
the Ethiopian forces, sent them without clothes. The Eritrean people gave them clothes, they gave them food.
የኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ማወቅ
The Ethiopian people must know and must honor this.
ወንድም ህዝብ
The
ብቻ
Eritrea
ሳይሆን
people
የቁርጥ
is
ቀን
not
ዘመድ
just a
መሆኑን
brother
በተግባር
people, but a friend in difficult situation.
ኦፕሬሽን ተካሂዶ በየቦታው
When the
ያገኘናቸው
operation
እስር ቤት ያገኘናቸው
was being carried on, the people we met in prisons, they are
በ10 ቀን ውስጥ ጠውልገዋል
very
ወደ ኤርትራ የወጡት ግን በሁለት ሶስት ቀን ውስጥ በትተው
in a bad situations. But those that fled Ethiopia to Eritrea, they get strong and came back to fight for their country. Those that denied it food and water are our own people. Those that were sent
እንግዲህ ራቁታን ነው
without any clothes, they were sent to Eritrea. That's why they came with Eritrean attire.
በዚህ ኦፕሬሽን ለኤርትራ
So
ህዝብና
in this operation,
ለሱዳን
for the people of Eritrea, for the government and people of Eritrea, for the people and government of Djibouti and Somalia and Kenya people and government, South Sudan people and government, I extend great appreciation and thanksgiving.
ያረዳን የለም
Everybody helped us. Sudan,
እንደተለመደ
as usual,
ከጎናችን
stood with us,
ከፍተኛ ድጋፍ አድርጋለች
gave us great support. Eritrea, Djibouti, Kenya, Sudan, the same.
ጎረቤቶቻችን
Our neighbor countries, we needed them,
ወደፊትም በተከባበረ መንፈስ
would
በወዳጅነት
continue to
አብረን
work
እንሰራለን።
together in a spirit of brotherhood. We need them.
ከዚህ ጋር ተያይዞ
In connection with
የሰሜን
this,
ጥቃት
the
እስካሁን ያለው
Northern
ዳራ
Division
ገባቸው።
attack,
የሪፎርሙ ስብስብና
now that
የፈተና
we know
ገባቸው።
the background
የሰሜን ጥቃት
that I just
ዳራ
relayed,
ድንገት አልተፈጠረም። ሳደቡ
this junta, they gave us, they insulted us, we didn't respond. They conspired all sorts of economic and other conspirations, we kept quiet. They created havoc here and there, we kept quiet.
ምርጫ ሲያካሂዱ ጠብቀዋል።
They conducted illegal elections, they expected war, we didn't do anything. All sorts of political incitements,
ይሄ ሁሉ
we kept our
ሲመራቸው
cool.
ነው ወደ ውጊያ የገቡት።
It's
ከዛ በፊት ግን
then we went to attack.
ሰሜን ዕዝ ማለትና
But before we go there, the Northern Division
ሌላው እዝ ተደምሮ ሰሜን ዕዝን አያክልም።
and all other divisions combined together would not amount the Northern Division, be it military capacity wise, armament wise. The military depot is in Tigray. We don't even have a single bullet here.
ኢትዮጵያ ያላት ሮኬት
The rockets, missiles, all of it are in Tigray region.
ሚሳኤል ላይ የሚጫወቱ ሰዎች በሙሉ
The missile operators are from one region.
ያንን ሮኬት ለማምጣት
To bring that rocket, there was a lot of attempts done. We gathered them and we tried to negotiate with them.
እናንሳው ስንል
We should remove the rockets,
ማታ ሪፖርት ያደርጋል።
but they would tell the junta, and the next day they would close the door with women and children. they said the armament is not going to move there. They said with the pretext that Eritreans would fight against us, but they were getting ready for another war. So we had to do whatever we could, but we could not remove the rockets. We asked for the keys, the starters. They brought us the key. But they're still using the rockets. By the way, our defense force, the armaments, the mechanized, for years was purposely made to gather in that region. They wanted to collect forces in that particular place. This is an open knowledge. The tanks are there, all sorts of armaments are there. Even the Ethiopian depot or oil depot is there. So when we talk of mobility, the army could not do anything. We cannot replace that by new purchases for the lack of money. So with the Special Force, Air Force and rockets, there was a lot of work done. You accuse us not acting in time, but we needed even more time because to come up with commanders, we cannot just assign. It's a career that requires time to develop. Having done that, keeping all our armaments, what led us to make preparation is when we had a conflict in other parts, not thinking that there would be traitors to such an extent. We asked that some of the army and the armaments should come to help. They said no, the army is not going and the armament is not going. They're actually sending forces against us, encouraging other forces to come and fight us. This is what they've been doing, and then on that particular night at 11 p.m., this junta disrupted communication from Addis Ababa. They stopped power, electric power, and telephone communication. So they gathered in 50, 60, so that they would not communicate with one another. They gathered, they rounded up with the militia, and they sent elders for those who refused to cooperate. Very disgraceful acts of terrorism and violence. And then they killed many, they took many captive. Those who were killed, they were tied with ropes and they were totally naked, the bodies. By the way, a dead body has no race. It's when life is there that we talk of ethnicity. A dead body does not have any language, just a body. But to think that a dead body is an Oromo and a Tigray, it's inhuman. Okay, kill them, but not burying them, it's shameful. Let alone an army that fought for you and did a lot of good on your behalf. So arrogance, pride is bad. It brings about destruction, and it has a blinding force. If we have this power and this armaments, that's the way that's the reason that led them to act like this. Before this, they have openly said, if you don't do what we tell you to do, would create havoc, not only in Ethiopia, in East Africa. This is not in. They don't say this in secret. They speak this to diplomats, and the diplomats get afraid. They said if you touch them, they would disrupt the peace of the area. What is very sad about this is an old ape wants to jump like a young one, and it gets into trouble. These people have no knowledge of military science at all whatsoever. They just have old mentality, be it economic or military. Let me give you two examples for this.
በአሜሪካን ሲቪል
In the
ዋር
American Civil War,
የአሜሪካን ሲቪል ዋር የፈጠረው ዋናው ጉዳይ
the thing that American Civil War created was in the southern part of the US, and the north there was a conflict
የባሪያ ስርዓት ይቅር
around slavery.
አብርሃም ሊንከን
Abraham Lincoln
ሲመጣ የባሪያ ስርዓት አቆማለሁ
wanted to demolish slavery,
ደቡብ አካባቢ
and those in the south with huge plantations, they wanted to continue with the system.
ጀነራል ጀፈርሰን
So
ዴቪስ
General Jefferson Davis, who was a graduate of War Academy in the US,
ራሱን ቺፍ ኦፍ ስታፍ አድርጎ
he became a chief of staff in the south, and then they said we have seceded, and they said they don't respect Abraham Lincoln. That was the campaign. Abraham Lincoln, just like us, he begged for years and took the situation in a lot of patience. But one night, just like what happened in Ethiopia, in South Carolina, a mechanized army,
በሌሊት ገብቶ
they attacked it during the night. That was led by General Davis.
ደበደባቸው መሳሪያ ቀማ
They stole armaments also.
አብርሃም ሊንከን አልተዘጋጀም
Abraham Lincoln was not prepared for this.
ወታደር ነኝ ውትድርናን ከኔ በላይ የሚያውቅ
That man said, I am an army qualified general and nobody can fight the way I do. Abraham Lincoln gathered up militias.
እነዚህ የደቡብ ግዛቶች
The first thing he did was he closed the border of the southern border, that the southerners would not be able to leave their country.
እንደ ጀፈርሰን ዴቪስ ሰሜን እዝን ሲያጠቁ እኛ ደግሞ ቶሎ ብለን ቦርደር
When they attacked the northern division, the first thing we did was we closed the border.
ሁለተኛው
Second thing was, just like the American Civil War,
እናንተን የገጠማችሁ ፈተና ነው የገጠማችሁ
we want to tell the Americans that the same struggle that you faced happened in Ethiopia. It took you 3.5 years to reunify the two parts of the US because you deemed it unconstitutional. So the same thing happened. The constitution was attacked. It didn't take us 3 years, but only 3 weeks.
በዚህ ብትረዱ
If you understand that this way, it would be good.
አሜሪካ ጋር
The
የሚያያዘው
second relationship with what happened in the US was in the Second World War.
ፐርል ሃርበር የሚባል ቦታ ላይ ጃፓን
The Japanese
አሜሪካ ጦር ላይ
attacked the American army at the Pearl Harbor unexpectedly, just like what happened in Tigray.
የባህር ኃይሉ ያኔ አሜሪካ ፓርላማ
American Parliament decided to defend itself.
ጃፓን ላይ ጦር መሳሪያ ብቻ ሳይሆን የኒውክሌር ቦምብ ተጠቅሞ
It used even a nuclear bomb against Japan and totally destroyed Japan.
በነገራችን ላይ
As
በአሜሪካ
you
ሲቪል
know, in
ዋር
the American Civil War,
የጀነራል ጀፈርሰን ዴቪስ እምቢት
the arrogance of General Jefferson,
20 ዓመት
even 20 years after the war, the southern
መልሶ መገንባት አልቻለም
part of the US took more than 20 years to rebuild its community.
የጃፓን
The keys of Japan in the Second World War,
ያንን ጦርነት የመራው
the leader of the war,
ማካርቱር
General MacArthur,
ፎስተር ጀነራል አሜሪካ
Foster MacArthur, after defeating and winning the battle in Tokyo,
መንደር የአሜሪካ ጦር ሰፈር ብቻ
the only part that was remaining standing is the American camp military. Apart from that,
መሰረተ ልማት
all
የማይታይባት የወደመች ከተማ
infrastructure was totally demolished.
በዛ
But not only that,
እስካሁን ድረስ
up until today,
ውጊያ ሳቢያ
because of
ጉዳዩ ምንም ነገር እውቀት የሌላቸው
what happened then, the generations after generations are suffering
በሽታ
all sorts of sicknesses. It's open knowledge.
ይሄን ታሪክ ያፈጀ ያረጀ እሳቤ ይዞ
So this age-old mentality is what this junta had in mind when it attacked the northern division.
አንድ የኛ ሰው አለ
This certain individual told us the story. He said it was an attack, swift attack like lightning. They openly declared that.
መሪዎች እየወጡ
The leaders of the region said the northern force is with us, but the northern force is for 20 years. They fought with the Eritreans. Not only that, but for 20 years, it protected the region against further attack.
እሱ ጋር ከሆነ
If the northern division is with them,
የተከላከለ ነው ጩኸት አያስፈልግም
then it's a lost case.
ይዞ መከላከል ትጥቁ ያለው እዛ ሰው
The
ያለው
force is there, the people is there.
በአንድ ሚዲያ ከኛ ጋር
In one media they say they are with us, and the second day they say they fought against us. All sorts of conflicting reports.
ንጹሐንን ማስጨረስ
killing
አሁን የማይካድራው በምን አማርኛ
civilians. How can you describe the situation that happened in Maikandra?
የታጠቁ እንኳን ቢሆን
These are totally
ምናልባት
unarmed civilians.
ምንም የማያውቁ ቀን ሰራተኞች
They're just daily laborers.
በቀን ሸቅለው የሚኖሩ ሰዎችን ሰብስበው
You gather them
በላባቸው የሚኖሩ
up,
ሰዎች ሰብስበው በጅምላ
daily laborers, and kill them in mass.
የፖለቲካ ሽንፈትና
This is
ውድቀት
political destruction and moral deprivation.
መጥፎ ድርጊት
It's terrible
ወታደሩ
within the military and also in the civilians. Not only, by the way, it's not only in military, but in Shire we have camps for refugees.
ሌላ ብሔር ተወላጆችን እንዲሁ አፍኖ አስሯል።
They have also imprisoned people from there.
በዩኒቨርሲቲ የሰማችሁት ነው።
You've heard what they did in universities.
ዓላማው የነበረው
The purpose was
መጀመሪያ ሰሜን መምታት
to hit the northern division,
ጎንደርና ወልዲያን መያዝ
and also the second day take Gondar and Woldia captive,
ላይ ባሉ ኤጀንቶች
and using their agents in Addis Ababa
ይፈነዳል፣ አገር ይበጠበጣል። ከዛ በኋላ
use destruction in Adama, in Addis Ababa with bombs,
ያሉ ኃይሎች
and those
ተዘጋጁ ነበር። መንግስት
in Addis Ababa, they were ready to act for them.
የመጀመሪያው ስራችን
So the first
ጎንደርና
work
ወልዲያን መያዝ እንዳይቻል
was to prevent any
ለዚህም አስቸኳይ ጊዜ አዋጅ
attack against Gondar and Woldia.
በማግስቱ
So the second day we came up with a law of state of emergency, came up with one command center, so
በኦሮሚያ አካባቢ
Oromia Special Forces
ሙሉ በሙሉ ስለሚወጣ በርካታ ኃይል ስለሚወጣ
had to cover for the defense force because the defense force had to relocate to north.
ሚሽን ተሰጠው። የመከላከያ የኦሮሚያ ልዩ ኃይል ከፍተኛ ውጊያዎች ሲያካሂድ ነበር።
So there was a lot of attacks
ያ ባይሆን ኖሮ
by the Oromia Special Forces defending the country against anti-peace forces,
በተለይ በድንበር አካባቢ ላይ
and the Mahara Special Forces until the defense force comes to help.
ኤሪያዎች ላይ በከፍተኛ ተጋድሎ
They fought fiercely defending themselves and the region,
የመስፋት ፍላጎት አስቆመዋል።
and they stopped the progress of the enemy in Benishangul.
ልዩ ኃይልና
Special forces and the federal police worked together and handled the situation there.
ፌዴራል ፖሊስ
The federal
እዚህ ከተማ
police
ውስጥ ሆነው በፈንጅ በቦምብ ሊያሰቃዩ የሚያስቡ ሰዎችን
were
ቀን ከሌት ፈትሸው
dismantling forces that wanted to create havoc in the city.
ለእነዚህ ሁሉ ከፍተኛ ክብር
All these require a great honor, especially that of Defense Force, Honorable Parliament.
ብዙ ሀገራት
In many countries
የመከላከያ ሰራዊት ዩኒፎርም ለብሰው
with uniforms,
የሚጠብቁ ከሆነ
when they stand for taxis, they give them preference. In the airports, they give them preference because they respect the uniform, because in time of difficulty it's quite costly. We don't really give them salaries,
ቢያንስ እንደ ሀገርና ሕዝብ መለየው የምናከብር
but as a nation
ሰልፎች
we
ቅድሚያ
should
የምንሰጥ
give honor
ውትድርና ለሀገር የሚከፈል
to
ዋጋ
soldiers,
መሆኑን
recognizing
ዜጎችና
that
የምናደርግ መሆን
they
አለበት።
pay the highest price for their country.
የኢትዮጵያ ጠላት እንደ ማሽሩም ነው።
Otherwise, Ethiopians have many enemies.
ይሄ ሲባል ይሄ
When
ነው።
you stop this, the other one comes
ይሄ
up.
ሀገር እንዲቀጥል
If we
ከፈለግን
want this country to
ለመከላከያ
continue,
ክብር መስጠት
we need to honor the defense
ይህን
forces.
ሁሉም ዜጎች ማድረግ አለባቸው። ማገልገልም አለብን፣
So
ማክበርም
we
አለብን።
have to engage in the military and honor the military at the same time.
የሚገጥመንን ፈተና የምንወጣው
It's this way that we can
ጦርነቱን በሚመለከት ግን
defend
ከዚህ
further
ቀደሙ
attacks.
በግድፉ ሳይሆን ትንሽ ገባ ገባ እያልኩ ለተከበረው ምክር ቤትና
concerning
መግለጽ እፈልጋለሁ።
the battle.
የመጀመሪያው ስራ
The first work that we engaged in
ጎንደርና
was
ጎጃም እንዳይስፋፉ
to
ማድረግ።
stop them from encroaching Gondar and Gojam.
ወደ ኤርትራ እንዲያፈገፍግ ያዘዝነው ኃይል አለ።
And
መገናኛ የለም፣ ስልክ
there
የለም።
was a part of an army that we wanted them to flee to Eritrea, but communication was an issue.
በተለየ መንገድ ለመክፈት መሞከር
But
እንዲሸሹ
we tried to
ማድረግና
communicate
በኤርትራ
the
በኩል ደግሞ
command
ሰው በእግሩ
so that they would
ሄዶ
flee to
እንዲላቸው መልዕክት ማድረስ ነው።
Eritrea.
ግን ምን ያክል ሰው እንደወጣ
We don't know how many have fled there because they have not received the command properly.
አንቀበልም ብለው የሰሜን
Northern Division head, what I want the Parliament to know, General Direba, head of Northern Division. 15 days ahead of the war, he sat with a meeting there after they had lunch. He became ill, sick, became unconscious. He was hospitalized. And some say he was poisoned. And we said, no, let it be confirmed now. We didn't want the news to come out. General Direba, up until this moment, is not in a position to resume work. When he became sick, we wanted to replace him. That's why. But that was purposely done, and refusing the new leadership that they have conspired other moves. So we assigned another person to replace him. They sent him back. So they take captive the deputy leader, and they broke communication. You know the story. So our first move was to stop their move towards Gondar and Bajam. That was on Tuesday. So we began defense work on Wednesday. We started to gather up our forces. After 1-2 days, we organized ourselves and we tried to close the borders. When we did that, the force that fled to Eritrea, we wanted to know how many of our forces are in Eritrea. I went there taking 3 generals. The reason we did that was we wanted to see the situation of our army and to design a plan. When we went there, what we saw was very tragic. General Ababao Tadesse is an army that he led for many years. So when they saw the general, they began crying. The general said, "I'm not coming back with you. I'll stay with the army." General Getachew Gudina, it's his own army. It's his children that have been killed. He cried there. He says, "I'm not coming up with the General Baj Adebele." The 3 of them went with me. The army had its spirit on. Some of it I would tell you later. They are still with their guns, some of them. They have even apprehended arms, and some were totally naked. Some were very tired. So their question was, take us back in. We want to fight this junta. So after doing situational analysis, we came up with a new organization. But the enemy thought that that part was already dismantled. We assigned leaders and began to organize ourselves. Concerning the rockets, as I've mentioned earlier, our rockets are there 100%, and they are all from that part of Ethiopia. We wanted to bring the arms there, but we did not succeed. But now, recognizing that these rockets would be deadly, let's destroy the rockets. And when we had information, one of it was the rocket in Makale that can be reached 300 kilometers. The rocket is there, and they can use it. The rocket is in the city, and the item they need to use it is out of Makale, and the less powerful one is in Adwa and Metik. So we discussed and had a debated discussion. Let's hit it or not. There was a lot of debate. Honorable Parliament must know the missiles that was in Makale. If we hit it, it can destroy the whole city. We cannot be sure of the outcomes. Some technical people say it will not be destructive. Some technical people say no, it could prove to be costly. It was risky.
ከከተማ ውጭ
So the item that couldn't
ከተማ ውስጥ ያለው ግን
trigger the rockets were out of Tigray.
አደገኛ ስለሆነ አድዋ ላይ ያለው ግን ከተማ ውስጥ
But in Adwa, the rockets are in Metek.
ከፍተኛ ደረጃ
If we destroy that, it would destroy the city.
እንደዚህ አይነት ሪስክ እኛ
So we didn't want to go into such
ከተማ
a
ውስጥ
risk.
ቢሆን ጥሩ ነው። ከተማ ውስጥ ከሆነ አናርግ ብለን በፍጥነት ጠላት ተዘጋጅቶበታል። ከቦታ ቦታ እየቀያየረ ያው እንደምታውቁት የውር ድንብር ሙከራዎች አድርጓል። ሮኬቱን ይህን ካደረግን በኋላ የተከተልነው አካሄድ ሳያውቁ የተከላከሉ ኃይሎች እጃቸው መስጠት
The groups that were defending without knowing, we gave them a chance to give in,
ከተማ ውጊያ እንዲቀር ማድረግ
to stop
ኃይሎቻችን እንዳይጎዱ
wars in the urban,
ሰክሰስፉሊ
to
የሰራነው
protect our citizens from the consequences,
በአጭር ጊዜ እንዲጠናቀቅ ማድረግ
and also to make sure the conflict, the war ends very soon,
በከፍተኛ ደረጃ እንዲቀንስ ማድረግ
and also to deteriorate the capacity of the enemy to defend itself.
የጁንታው ኃይል
The force of the junta,
ከሽራሮ የሁመራን ፓርት ሳይጨምር
disregarding Humara,
መቀሌ ለመግባት 15 ዓመት የፈጀበት
took it 15 years to get to Mekelle.
በ15 ቀን ነው እኛ የገባነው።
We've been able to do that in 15 days.
እኛም በእግር ነው የገባነው፣ እሱም በእግር ነው
They
የገባነው።
walked, we walked.
ጀግናው የመከላከያ ሰራዊት
The victorious defense force from the tip of Gondar to Shirre walked. They didn't use cars. Some of you said we delayed, but they walked. The road is tiring. You won't even drive a Land Cruiser. It's really tiring. They walked.
ይሄን ለማድረግ የተከተልነው
In order to do this,
አስተላለፍ አደረጃጀት
our strategy,
አነሳላችኋለሁ። እንትና ወጋ እንትና
I'll
ወጋ
explain it in detail so you know the truth.
ሳተናው ጀነራል
General Belai,
ልብ ቆራጡ
the victorious General Masala,
የመጀመሪያ የመከላከል ስራ በጎንደር በኩል
did the first defense
ሁመራ የመያዙን ስራ
on the side of Gondar and also the occupation of Humara, together with their counterparts.
ሳተናው በላይ
Satanao Belai and victorious Masala are the children of Ethiopia. They never had a consultant, they never had a different force, but
ትንታጉ
they
ጀነራል
walked in.
በምዕራብ ግንባር
Our general in the west
የወጣውን የኢትዮጵያ ወታደር አደራጅቶ አስታጥቆ
assembled
ሽራሮን
the army,
መጀመሪያ እኛ ምሽግ
first
ቦታዎቹ እንግዲህ
controlled our trench.
አታውቋቸውም። በጣም
You
ብዙ
don't
ቦታዎች
know them in detail.
ነገመሃሎ የምታውቁ ከሆነ
If you know Nagahalo, Badme, Biara,
እነዚህን ይዞ
it
ሽራሮን
controlled these places and controlled Shiraro. And this was the mission given to General Abao.
ሁመራን
General Belai
ጎሹን ይዘው
controlled Shiraro and crossed Takaze
አበባው ኃይል ጋር እንዲቀላቀሉ ተደረገ።
and joined General Ababao's forces.
ሽራሮን የያዘው አበባውን
Abao controlled Shiraro. Humara was controlled by Belai and
ይህ ኃይል
Masala.
ተደምሮ ነው ሽሬን የያዘው።
These forces combined controlled Shiraro and Aksum.
በራማና
Between
እዛ አካባቢ
Rama and the area and the conflicts that took place, General Bacha organized the forces.
ባጫ ሚሽን
The mission given to Bacha
አድዋ ሄደውን
was
ቦታው መጀመሪያ ምሽጋችንን መያዝና
to control
ሽሬ ሲጠጋ ያኛው ኃይል
Techo area
አድዋን መውቀጥ ነው።
and to cut on Adwa.
በዛላምበሳ በኩል ያለውን
On the side of Zalambasa,
ከመያዙ በፊት
before controlling it,
ባጫ የተሰጠው ሚሽን
General Bacha was given a mission, Sorana,
ኃይል ማደራጀትና
to
ጀምር ሲባል
organize forces
መሄድ ነው።
to
እነሱ
start
የሚጠበቁ ኃይሎች አሉ።
attacking when it's given
በዛላምበሳ በኩል
orders. From the side of Zalambasa, General
የወጣውን
Getachew
ኃይል አደራጅቶ
organized the
በከፍተኛ
forces
ጀግንነትና ቆራጥነት
and was victorious and zealous motion controlled
ነው ሚሽን
Zalambasa. That was the mission given to him.
ልክ የነ ጀነራል በላይና አበባው ሽሬ ሲደርስ የአድዋው
When the other forces reached Shiraro,
የተዘጋጀ ቀድሞ
the other
ምሽጉን
forces
የያዘ
were strong enough and to reach at their places because we assembled forces in different locations.
በምስራቅ በኩል
From the east,
በተለይ ከባድ መሳሪያን
especially
በማስተባበር
in organizing heavy artilleries.
ጀነራል አለምሸት ነበር።
General Alamshet was in command.
ከሱ ጋር
Together with him,
ነጎድጓዱ ጀነራል ሰለሞን
General Solomon
ጀነራል ዘውዱ ነበሩ።
and General Zaudu
ይሄ
were
አስተዳደር
together.
ቋሚ አይደለም።
This was not a permanent assignment.
አንዱ ቦታ ሲያዝ የጀመርነው በዚህ መንገድ ቢሆንም በኋላ
However, we started this way. There were shifts.
ተፈለጉ አንዳንዶቹ ሌላ
When we wanted them in different fronts, we were reshuffling them.
ምርጫው ቤዝ ያደረገው
The
እያንዳንዱ
choice based on an understanding of each mountain,
መሽለኪያ ቦታዎች
the height, and the passes.
ሳተናው ጀነራል አበባው
General Ababao,
ከኤርትራ ጋር በነበረው ውጊያ
in a war between Eritrea, knows
ዝርዝር የሚያውቀው ነው።
every detail in the area, the
እንዲሁም
terrain,
ጀነራል ጌታቸው
and General Getachew also understands Zalambassa and the area.
ጠላት
Therefore,
ተናነሰ
we know that they know it,
እውቀት
if
ይዘው
not equal, if not better, equally as the enemy.
ተራራ ቦታዎች በመለየት
They were able to identify terrains and difficult locations, and we used them for that.
እዚህ ድል ቁርሱ ጀነራል ብርሃኑ ጁላ
General Brahanu Jula, the victorious,
ይዞ
had two
እጅግ የሚያስደምሙ
forces
24 ሰዓት ከሲቹዌሽን ሩም የማይወጡ
that never left the situation room for 24 hours.
በኮማንድ ፖስት
These
አጠቃላይ
generals,
ሂደቱን ሲመራ ቆይቷል። ከነዚህ
he was
ውስጥ
leading
አንዱ
the forces,
ሀገር ወዳዱ
using these
ጀነራል
forces.
ዮሐንስ ይገኝበታል። በሀገሩ የማይደራደረው ጀነራል ዮሐንስ
General Johannes is amongst them.
አነፍናቂውና
He doesn't
የጠላትን ኮቴ የሚከተለው ጀነራል አስራት
compromise the issue of his country. General Asrat, who reads
መኮንኑ ጀነራል ተስፋዬ
the map like a ground. General Tasfaye, the
ጀነራል
logistics head, General
በሰማይ
Abdurrahman,
በከፍተኛ ደረጃ
human resource,
የሚያመጋግበው ጀነራል ሀጫሉ
General Hachalu,
የጠላትን አቅም የሚገነባው
General Hassan, who builds the force against the enemy, and others were under the command post in true missions, were engaged in the war. One thing I don't want to leave without mentioning here is that one
አርድ አንቀጥቅጡ ጀነራል ይልማ
General Yilma,
የአየር ኃይል አዛዥ
leader of the Air Force,
በከፍተኛ ደረጃ ጀግኖችን ተዋጊዎች ይዞ
led his victorious
ባሰብነው
team
ባቀድነው ልክ ጦርነቱ ሊጠናቀቅ ከፍተኛ ተጋድሎ
and
ፈጽሟል።
sacrificed to complete the
ንስሩ
mission on time.
ጀነራል ሹማና
General Shuma and General Brahanu Bakala
ስፔሻል ፎርስን በማደራጀት በነገራችን ላይ
organized the
ስፔሻል
special
ፎርስ
forces.
ስለ ጀግንነት
The
አላወራም።
special forces
የኢትዮጵያ አርቲስቶች፣ የኢትዮጵያ ጸሐፊዎች
victoriousness, I will not say much about it.
በዓለም ላይ የማታገኙት
Our
ጀግንነት
authors,
ፈጽመዋል።
our musicians, you have a work to do there.
እኔ ጀግንነት ብዬ ላወራው የምችለው
What I
ከሌላ
call
ሀገር
victory would be if we were fighting against any other country, but it was within ourselves. The ones who died and the ones who killed are, of course, our own. But the special force in Mekelle
መቀሌ ለመቆጣጠር ያደረገው ጀግንነት
made sure we controlled the city without killing a single
ሁመራ ላይ
person.
የነበረው ምሽግ
In Humera,
ይህ
it
ስፔሻል
destroyed
ፎርስ
a trench.
አንድ ሰው ሰውቶ ብርጌድ አፍርሷል።
Only one person was
በፊልም
sacrificed.
ካልሆነ በስተቀረ
Unless you make a movie out of it, it's difficult to talk the victoriousness of these people.
የሄደው ስፔሻል ፎርስ
The special force that went
ፊት
there
ለፊት ያየውን ጠላት አልዋጋም ብሎ
denied fighting the forces in front of it and infiltrated all the way in, and the shots were fired from the back.
ጠላት ጨርሶ በትኖ ጥይት ጨርሶ
They finished their bullets
እጁ
after
ተናንቆ
removing the
ተጠላት
enemies,
ተናንቆ
and some of them fought and took guns from the enemies.
በዚያ መንገድ ነው 15 ቀን
This
የነበረው።
is
በ15
how
ቀን
they
ማለት
completed it in 15
ይቻላል።
days.
15 ማለት ነው።
A 15 years war in 15
እዚህ
days.
ውስጥ ብዙ መጠቀስ ያለባቸው ሰዎች ቢኖሩም
Despite the fact that we have to mention a lot of people here, General Girma Kabababo, the 7th Brigade Commander,
ለጦሩ እየተዋጋች እስከደረስንበት ቀን ድረስ እሞታለሁ እንጂ መሳሪያዬን አልሰጥም ብሎ
decided not to give in his ammunition and weapons till the last moment and fought with its force and entered Eritrea. And the weapons he couldn't carry, he burned it down. When we went to Eritrea, we didn't expect to see that many weapons. General Mulalam, 5th Brigade, in the area of Humara, was fighting until the point possible. Bademe 8th Brigade Commander General Nasr Abadiga used all its force till the end and controlled Shiraro. We have this kind of incredible people that don't care much about their lives. Had Ethiopia not had these children, it would have changed where we are right now. It would have made our country like other countries. The role of the people of Tigray in all this and their victoriousness, their love for the country, I want the Honorable House to take it into consideration. At the time of the conflict, there was a person who was shot because he denied or he opposed killing of the army. There are Tigrayans who left to Eritrea who didn't want to see the war. There were others who joined the defense force and fought in the war. This is the issue of Ethiopianism vis-a-vis the junta. When we reached Shire, we received 200 weapons. When we reached Aksum, 40 injured persons were given to us by the people. We had discussions in Mekelle yesterday. They said, "You're late. Now that you are here, please give us electricity and telecom. We want to get back to our lives." The forces disintegrated into different parts in order to stop them from further actions and attacks. They said, "Please create a new administration." They received us with warm hands. The army loved its country and didn't cause any destructions. We didn't only fight on the ground. As I've said earlier, in the army, when the captain, the commander, and everyone leaves, we didn't have a commander or a leader. Diplomatic actions were lobbying on the part of the enemy in different parts of the world. They were lobbying on the media also. The war was on all fronts. And most of our friends started pressuring us to get into discussions. As this honorable house knows, we love to discuss. We hate war. We know its consequences. We begged until the time they attacked us. But after that, controlling Gondar, Waldia, that was what's left to say. It was not the issue of the army only. When tensions grew, they started resorting politics. And if that's the case, you don't attack the northern division. No country will do this. If the army is attacked in any country will respond furiously. We know diplomacy. Ethiopia is a country that established the United Nations. Ethiopia is a country that established the African Union. You cannot tell us about multilateralism. We're known by peace. In Korea, in different parts of Africa. We served for peace. What we want to tell our friends is that if you want to be friends with us, you have to understand us also. We could be poor, but we have years of experience in being a government. More than some of your countries. We've been countries before your countries. We don't confuse a country and a government. We want you to understand that. Not today, even 100 years ago, we gave our neck to be free from colonialism. You don't have to forget that. And the third one is Honorable Speaker of the House, his victory is Ethiopia. No individual will sell his or her country for their benefit. We love peace, we work for peace, and you have to understand that. And if you understand what's ours, you should collaborate with us. No matter poverty we're in, will not give in our pride to others. Don't blame us. It's not our fault. This is in our blood, transmitted from our fathers. Well, money will not pressure us. You can only work together with us. You cannot win Ethiopia when you have Ethiopians living here. Today or tomorrow. You can't win as long as Ethiopians live on this land. We don't want you to think that way. You have to listen to us when we try to enforce the law. This is for the good friends. And there are others with hidden agenda. The hidden agenda is, I don't want to mention names, but our neighbors, all of them, have powers of Dammaka and powers of Abi. They'll say, Dammaka, move your forces here, Dammaka, move your forces there. They keep saying Dammaka and Abi are not in agreement, let's have meeting in Kigali, and so on and so on. That's impossible to repeat in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has one government, and that government respects the law, upholds the rule of law, and can be asked according to the law, and gives respect to its people. As much as possible, it will create a democracy that looks like Ethiopia. We don't want to look like others. We want to look like ourselves. We will not have forces like other countries, competing forces. And those forces or those parties that has this kind of understanding, please drop it. Otherwise, there is no international government that does not understand what we have been doing. You heard my cadra. We heard about my cadra. We heard about our general being taken and corpse left on the streets. With those conditions, we can't have discussions. With who? Perhaps the Honorable House needs to understand the government of Ethiopia has been having discussions even during the time of war. In the past 2-3 weeks, while we're still into war, we're having dialogues. These dialogues were made with Dr. Mulu, who is the legal authority in Tigray. What will we do in Tigray? The first one is enforce the law. 2, don't fight in the city so the people won't be affected. Citizens will be okay then. And 3, start rehabilitating the regions, the cities, as soon as you occupy them. That was the mission given to us. We based on that.
አልተደራደርክምና ድርድር የለም የሚባል ነገር ስህተት ነው።
We cannot, the fact that we didn't sit and on a dialogue with enemies and with criminals
ወደፊትም ይቀጥላል።
does not make it that we were not interested in a dialogue.
እንዳትዋጉ አይጠቅምም። እኛ አንፈልግም ውጊያ።
Somali and regions also said, we need peace.
የምንፈልገው ማለት እኮ የራስን ፍላጎት
The fact that they said they need peace is an expression of their interest. It does not, however, mean that when you are attacked, definitely the scenarios will change, the responses will change. There are a lot of pressures, a lot of things are said that required its own war. This or that, we want you to understand we need peace, but if our sovereignty is affected, we will act.
ወንጀለኞች ለህግ ማቅረብ በሚባል የተነሱ ሀሳቦች
The other one is bringing criminals to court,
የሽብር ስራ የሰሩ
was engaged in terrorism,
የተባበሩ የደፈሩ ብዙ ስራ የሰሩ ሰዎች አሉ።
killed and so on, different crimes.
ከኦፕሬሽኑ ጋር በደንብ ተግባብተን ማየት አስፈላጊ
We have to see it in line with the operation. The first one and our own first objective is freeing those taken and returning the tanks taken from us.
በሺህ የሚቆጠር ቁስለኛ
Thousands of injured persons came back. We still have forces with them. Those who are killed, we have taken control of our camps and government institutions. For instance, after controlling Mekelle, the army said, let me start searching. We said no.
መከላከያው ስልጠናው ብቃቱ ለመዋጋት ነው።
The army is only trained to fight, not to search. So they might cause damages.
ከመከላከያ ውስጥ አንዱ የሆነ ነገር ቢያነሳ ሊያቀያይም
If an army member takes something there,
የሰለጠነ ፌዴራል ፖሊስ
it could quarrel our relationship. So we'll send trained persons later. Not even a single defense force entered the city.
ከተማ ውስጥም
And in fact, in the cities they controlled, they haven't done anything that has to do with search and seizure.
መቀሌ ስንቃረብ
When we reached Mekelle,
ኩያ አካባቢ ነጃሽ
an area of Kwe and Najash, Wukro, whether you believe it or not, the farmers
ማሳሰብ ነበር።
were harvesting as if nothing happened. They knew it was their own force. There was nothing unique. They knew the propaganda.
ሁለተኛው አልቲማተም
The second ultimatum was
72 ሰዓት ሰጥተናል።
we gave them
ለምን
272 hours.
ለምን
Why?
ተራዘመ?
Why did you extend it? These are the questions raised from people.
ብዙ ዓላማ ነው ያለው።
These had several objectives. The extension had objectives.
አንደኛው
The first one is
ወደ መቀሌ እየተቃረብን
when
ስንል
we reached Mekelle,
በዚያ ፍጥነትና ሞራል የመጣው ኃይል
the force that approached with that power assumed the junta was in Mekelle. So we needed to slow down and work on the emotions. Otherwise, we might regret our actions.
ጁንታውን አገኘው እያለ
They may march in assuming they handled or they are arresting the junta.
በተለየ መንገድ
Therefore, we needed to have a special plan to avoid damages. The second one,
እያጠፋ ስለሚሄድ
the junta were destroying wherever they went. So we thought they might even do something in Mekelle.
የማይፈልጉ በጣም
And the third one is there are several people who doesn't want
ለእነሱም
war
ትዕግስት ያስፈልጋል።
at a grassroots level. So we needed to give them time to give in.
ገባ እናውቃለን። መያዝ
We knew we could control it, but we wanted a plan. We wanted to calm down. We wanted to have the necessary forces with the necessary responsibilities. That's why we delayed.
በአጭር ጊዜ ብለናል።
We said in a short period, and we completed it in a short period.
ጥፋት ያመጣል።
Expedited, it could cause a problem. If we go late, it could also cause damages. So we completed it in time.
መከላከያ
Perha-
ሁለት
In
ሳምንት
fact, the defense force
አቅርቧል።
had in its mind that it would complete the operation in 2 weeks.
ቅድም እንዳልኳችሁ ተተንትኖ ታይቶ
The government analyzed
እንዲራዘም ተደርጓል። ምክንያቱም
and extended it after doing analysis because we wanted to avoid distractions.
ቀጣይ ያለው ስራ ወንጀለኞች ከተደበቁበት
The way
ያወጡ
forward is arresting criminals
ተሰባስበው
from wherever they are. They went to a certain location.
የሚል
Who
ነገርም
they have feelings that they can fight,
ታዲያ ያለባቸው ከራሳቸው ጋር ነው።
but they have to fight within themselves, within their own perception of killing, looting,
ከሀሳባቸው ጋር መታገል ያለባቸው
and causing disagreements between people. And the use of Tigray should not be siding with them. They can win prosperity if they want, not through war, but through peace and through election. This is why we're only fighting using ballots, not bullets.
በነገራችን ላይ እነዚህ ሰዎች 40 ምናምን ዓመት እንዋጋ እያሉ የትግራይ ወጣትን እያስጨረሱ አንዳቸውም ሳይሞቱ አገር ሰላም ገቡ። አሁን አስጨርሰው
Not a single of them died, but they just said, let's fight, meaning protect us. We don't want to die, just protect us. But who is naive to die for them to live? If they were really courageous, instead of leaving the people of Makale, they should have fought there themselves and sacrificed their lives. They leave the fighting for others and they flee for dear life. If the surrender would take them to court, we're following them up, they cannot go far. It's good if they give up themselves, they never die. From palace, when they leave, they said would administer the country from Addis. They said when they left, forget it, would be in Makale, and now they moved to Agar Salam, and that does not go a long way. Our following work is building Tigray. Tigrayan people is under ration with lots of difficulties. This ration is getting lower, smaller, sorry. So we need to address this dire economic situations. We need to support and organize the country concerning refugees. They say some 30,000 people have left the country. As the parliament knows, this path of reform, millions of people had been displaced, and we reorganized, brought people back. So we have the experience in various. We can do this in a week. The UN, the Sudan government, and our door is open. Let's work together to bring our people back. They are our citizens. But we have one problem. There's no women, there's no children. It's just the young that is called refugee. Who are these young people? Then time will tell. In Maikandra, if they have killed people in Maikandra, and if there is evidence, they will be held legally accountable. If it's an innocent citizen, tomorrow morning. There's a committee set up, we're ready. If the world wants to assist, our doors are open. We don't want our people to leave out of Ethiopia, but 30,000 is not too much, because we have dealt with millions of internally displaced people. There are some people that want to magnify for political gain this incident. Political discussion in Tigray with the legal, apart from legal parties from Ararat, Tigray political parties, Prosperity Party, and other legal entities. Apart from them, nobody else can administer the country. Tigray is an honored people. They can administer themselves now that they are free from repression. They will conduct an election with its own people, and they will have their own self-administration. The junta would be handled by the continuing operation. Even for the junta, I have an advice. In order to save one or two people, to individuals, all this happened. When it comes to politics, 30 or 40 people that we want to apprehend. So 30, 40 people to save their lives, they should not create the destruction of many youth people. They will be held accountable. So a lot of work needs to go into it. We'll continue building, stabilizing, bringing peace. Apart from that, we will work to make sure that the coming election will be democratic. For Ethiopia, democracy is the real healing medicine. It has to be accountable, free and fair elections as per rules and regulations of the electoral board. We all need to be held accountable to that, and the parliament must do a follow-up and monitoring work towards this, and would work for the people of Tigray. It's good that we have a very good relationship with our neighbors, and this will continue in the future. The people of Ethiopia would galvanize together to rebuild Tigray, having assessed the damage. The government and the people at large need to engage in the rebuilding process of Tigray. And lastly, for foreigners and also for those within the country, the message that I have is from out of Ethiopia, that want to engage in any collaboration. We're free, but those in conspiracy and integrities, those forces that want to defeat Ethiopia, let them learn from history. It's impossible. But in a peaceful manner, diplomatic routes, the door is open. That's the message I have for foreigners and for those within the country. The advice that I have concerning the junta, I don't have a personal animosity and hatred to anybody there. It's with the mentality and with the works that I am against. If we remove one junta and come up with another one, it would be a total loss. It is this junta that created ethnic difference and animosity. If we hate each other on ethnic basis, then we become another junta. So Tigrayans, both in Tigray and in other parts of Ethiopia that are not linked with the junta, they are Ethiopians. We need to protect them. We need to honor them. If we don't do that, we just change the players. That's all we can do. So a lot of care needs to go into that, be it in defense forces, police, and also civilian work. And we need to give them protection. And some Tigrayans have been forced to leave out of their work, and what they themselves need to know and the parliament need to do is there's a lot of destruction in Tigray, mass killings, and we need to, like army members, we need to protect them maybe against any revenge. And second one is many had a role one way or the other in the evil acts perpetrated in the northern part of Ethiopia. So we have to learn from the experience in Maikandra. So because of these two reasons, actions have been made and would continue to look into this situation carefully. Winning a battle has its own negative consequences. We have had a powerful victory, but if it creates pride and arrogance on our part, then it would be destructive. I believe it is truth that won. It is the prayer and the tears of the mothers of Ethiopia. The rest of us need to be humble. We should not hate. We should not engage in victory songs, because the major battle is in front of us. The battle against poverty. If we persist in poverty, we are doomed to engage in other battles in our parts. If Junta X is demolished, Junta Y would come into pass. If we are to come out of the history of war, we have to forge ahead in speed towards development and prosperity. So this spirit of conviction that Ethiopians showed in this matter must be repeated in the battle to come out of poverty. We need to come out of being paupers. We can change ourselves. We have the capacity, we have the clarity in agriculture, industry, in cities. We need to, it takes a process. Development can be done by Ethiopians themselves. Others can only support. We cannot prosper out of begging.
ግጭት እንዳይኖር
So
ማለት
in
ነው።
order to
በብሔር
avoid
መከፋፈል
conflicts,
እንዳይኖር
ethnic
ማለት ነው።
conflicts,
ይህ ድል መናጠቅ እንዳይኖር ከዚህ ዜና ወጥተን በተባበረ ክንድ
this should be a matter
ወደ
of history,
ልማታችን
and in a concerted
ወደ
manner
ሰላማችን
we need to
ወደ ህጋዊ
engage
ምርጫችን
in
እንድንሄድ
our path of development
ከሁላችን
and
ይጠበቃል።
peace.
ኢትዮጵያ ህዝብ ይህን
The
በማድረግ
Ethiopian people
እንዲተባበር
must cooperate
አደራ
along
ማለት
these lines.
እፈልጋለሁ። ኢትዮጵያ
Ethiopia
በልጆቿ ጥረት ታፍራ ተከብራ
may
በልጆቿ
continue to
ደም
prosper by the
ህልውናዋን ጠብቃ
authority of the
ትቀጥላለች።
people, and its survival would be
አመሰግናለሁ።
maintained, ensured by the concerted efforts of
ክቡር
its
ጠቅላይ
people.
ሚኒስትርን
Thank
በቂ
you.
ማብራሪያ
We
ስለሰጡ
want to thank His
እጅግ
Excellency the
እናመሰግናለን።
Prime Minister for the adequate explanations he
ደግሞ
gave. Let's
እንሸኛቸዋለን።
honorably see
ሁለተኛው
him off
ሚኒስትር
now. The second meeting, extraordinary meeting, is now adjourned.